Chapter 43:17. In addition to the great power of the old man from the devil realm, Wanyang Sanren also burst out with an extremely terrifying fighting strength. Wanyang Cultivator unleashed the true Samadhi fire. It was an extremely terrifying flame. It was one of the most powerful flames that cultivators could cultivate. The true Samadhi fire was said to be able to burn a titled god to death. From this, one could tell how terrifying the true Samadhi fire was. After the true Samadhi fire enveloped the swarm of insects, a large number of insects died. Lin Feng's expression was gloomy. When he looked at the cages around him, his eyes could not help but light up slightly. There were many cultivators imprisoned in each of the cages. Now, it was time to release these cultivators. Bang! 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 Lin Feng unleashed one powerful Dharma treasure after another and bombarded the doors of the cages. Following that, the doors of the cages directly shattered. Then, Lin Feng's Dharma treasure flew into the cages and broke the restrictive spell chains that shackled the cultivators. We're free. We're finally free. Many people could not help but burst into tears. The feeling of freedom was just too good. Everyone, let's work together to save the rest. Lin Feng shouted loudly. The cultivators who managed to break free all took action, shattering the doors of the other cages and rescuing the cultivators who were imprisoned within. Lin Feng sent the swarm of insects, the Emperor Archaic and the primordial ancestral insect back to the space-time continuum. Then he shouted loudly, "Brothers, what are you waiting for? Let's kill the two bastards inside and kill our way out. Let's kill them first. Then we'll find a chance to kill Di Jue, that bastard who's worse than a beast." Then there were cultivators who chimed in. The cultivators imprisoned here were all captured by Di Jue for various reasons. Many of them had a blood feud with Di Jue. Therefore, their hatred for Di Jue was monstrous. When a large number of cultivators charged toward Wanyang Cultivator and the Devil Realm's old man, Lin Feng seized the opportunity to quickly leave the heavenly prison. He had saved the people. Now, he had to leave this place as soon as possible. Di Jue was very capable in the Dao Saint Palace. Even the heavenly Dao infinite diagram supported him. Therefore, it would not end well for him if he continued to stay in the Dao Saint Palace. Lin Feng was very clear about this. He passed through the layers of great arrays and quickly left the group of palaces. This was because the inside was sealed by a formation. That was why there was turmoil in the depths. The news hadn't spread yet. This was the best time for Lin Feng to leave. Lin Feng left the Dao Saint Palace that very night. In a forest 1,000 miles away from the Dao Saint Palace, Lin Feng found a hidden cave and sealed it with a seal. Then he entered the space of time. "Uncle Lin, how do you feel now?" Lin Feng asked with concern. "I won't die for now, but I've already become a cripple. I'm afraid I won't be able to take revenge anymore." Lin Yunsong said reluctantly. Lin Feng used his divine consciousness to check Lin Yunsong's body. His expression immediately turned ugly. There were silver needles and countless poisonous insects in Lin Yunsong's body. At this moment, Lin Yunsong was enduring great pain. He had been enduring it all this while. Di Jue and the others were really despicable. They had actually used such cruel methods to torture Lin Yunsong. "Uncle Lin, I'll heal you. You'll recover very soon," Lin Feng said as he patted Lin Yunsong's back. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The silver needles were all forced out. Then Lin Feng's magic power surged into Lin Yunsong's body. The poisonous insects were all refined to death and turned into nourishment for Lin Yunsong to absorb. Then Lin Feng used the great healing technique to heal Lin Yunsong's injuries. Lin Yunsang's injuries were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Little friend, your methods are really shocking," Lin Yunsang said emotionally. Lin Yunsang sighed with emotion. Although he had recovered from his injuries, his vitality was still extremely poor. This was because Lin Yunsang had become a cripple. He no longer had any hope for the future. When a person no longer had any hope, his life would soon come to an end. Hope was the motivation for a person to continue living. It was the same for everyone. Lin Feng said, "Uncle Lin, perhaps I have a way to restore your dantian to its original state." "What? Restore my dantian to its original state? Is this true?" Lin Yunsang asked excitedly as he grabbed Lin Feng's wrist. He could not believe his ears. He had originally lost all hope for the future. However, at this moment, he saw hope again. "Of course it's true." Lin Feng nodded and said, "Uncle Lin, please rest for a while. I'll make some preparations. I'll restore your dantian soon." "Good, good, good. That's great." Lin Yunsang could not help but nod excitedly. Lin Feng, on the other hand, began to adjust his condition. It was naturally extremely difficult to restore a crippled person to his original state. It could be considered as defying the heavens and changing one's fate. Lin Feng had cultivated the Great Fate technique, so he had the ability to defy the heavens and change one's fate. However, there was a chance of success in defying the heavens and changing one's fate. It was normal for one to fail. The first time one tried to defy the heavens and change one's fate, the success rate would be the highest. The further one progressed, the lower the success rate of changing one's fate. Therefore, Lin Feng's current condition was very important. The most important thing for him to do now was to adjust his condition to its peak. After all, he had been through a lot of battles. 6 hours later, Lin Feng had finally recovered to his peak state. Lin Feng looked at Lin Yunsang and said, "Uncle Lin, let's begin." "What do I need to do?" Lin Yunsang asked. Lin Feng said, "Uncle Lin, you don't need to do anything. You just need to sit down cross-legged." "All right." Lin Yunsang nodded. "Great Tao of Fate, please descend with the power of fate. I will use the power of fate to change a person's fate." Lin Feng began to chant an incantation. He wanted to use the power of fate to change Lin Yunsang's fate. Unfortunately, Lin Yunsang was not a member of the Undying clan. If he was, he could be revived even if his soul was destroyed, let alone his dantian. Of course, there were not so many ifs in the world. Under Lin Feng's command, the power of fate surged toward him. The powerful power of fate surged toward Lin Yunsang. It wrapped around Lin Yunsang. Lin Yunsang's body was constantly absorbing the power of fate. After the power of fate was absorbed by Lin Yunsang's body, the power of fate converged toward Lin Yunsang's dantian. Lin Yunsang's shattered dantian began to gradually recover. 2 hours later, Lin Yunsang's shattered dantian was completely restored. Chapter 43:18. I've recovered. I've finally recovered. Little friend Lin Feng, thank you so much. You've given me a new life. Lin Yunsang looked at Lin Feng gratefully. He was filled with emotions after regaining a new life. Lin Yunsang, he saw hope again. Lin Feng said, "Uncle Lin, you don't have to be so courteous. With our relationship, there's no need to be courteous." "Ha ha ha. You're right. Little friend, you're right. I was being unreasonable." Lin Yunsang laughed. Lin Feng said, "According to the news I received, the Stone Sovereign's son might attack the Tao Saint Palace soon. If the Stone Sovereign's son really leads an army to attack the Tao Saint Palace, it won't be too late for him to sneak into the Tao Saint Palace to look for his enemies. Is there such a thing? I have something to take care of. I hope that after I'm done, the Stone Sovereign's son will start a war with the Tao Saint Palace. Lin Yuntsong said. Lin Yuntsong did not say what he was going to take care of, and Lin Feng did not ask. Everybody had their own personal matters, so Lin Feng didn't ask about other people's personal matters. This was a form of respect for others. Lin Feng and Lin Yuntsong parted ways. Lin Feng did not plan to return to the Tao Saint Palace, but he did not leave the Tao Saint Palace either. Lin Feng had been loitering around the Tao Saint Palace, waiting for the Stone Sovereign's son to attack the Tao Saint Palace. During this time, a large number of cultivators had appeared in the Tao Saint Palace, searching for Lin Feng and Lin Yuntsong. Since Lin Yuntsong had temporarily left, it was impossible for them to find him. Although Lin Feng had been loitering around the Tao Saint Palace, Lin Feng was powerful enough to find him. Finding Lin Feng wasn't going to be an easy task. Yuji hasn't contacted me. I wonder how she's doing. Lin Feng could not help but frown. He had been worried about Yuji's situation all this time. Yuji had been responsible for luring Di Jue away. Lin Feng and Yuji had agreed to meet outside the Tao Saint Palace after everything was over. But Yuji never appeared. Since Yuji's opponent was Di Jue, how could Lin Feng not be worried about her? Starry Sky Hall, Kong Mingdao, and the other loose immortals appeared one after another. My lord, Lin Feng must be a traitor. He must have infiltrated our Tao Saint Palace with ulterior motives. He's not sincere about joining our Tao Saint Palace, Wanyang Sanren said with a gloomy face. Because Lin Feng released the experts in the heavenly prison, there were even loose immortal experts in the heavenly prison. With so many experts attacking at the same time, coupled with the cover of the night, many people managed to escape. Many people hated Di Jue and the Tao Saint Palace as well. This matter had alarmed the upper echelons. Wu Yazi said, Wanyang Sanren, it's best not to say such things. When Lin Feng joined the sect, my lord personally reviewed him. There's nothing wrong with Lin Feng at all. He joined our sect sincerely. If Di Jue did not imprison Lin Feng's friends, how could such things have happened? If you want to blame someone, you can't completely blame Lin Feng for this matter. Xia Yuanxiang nodded and said, That's right. It's obviously inappropriate to push all the blame to Lin Feng. Bai Yendi said, It's impossible for this matter to be the fault of one person. Although Lin Feng is at fault, it's understandable that he made a mistake for his friends. Lin Feng was recommended by Wu Yazi, Xia Yuanxiang, and by Yendi to join the Tao Saint Palace. Naturally, they had to speak up for Lin Feng. My lord, Lin Feng must be severely punished. Or else, how can the Tao Saint Palace show its might? Wanyang Sanren ignored Wu Yazi and the other two and continued to speak. The Heavenway Infinite Diagram's voice resonated from the boundless starry sky above. Lin Feng was personally reviewed by me. His motive for joining the Tao Saint Palace is very simple. He wants to use the powerful foundation of the Tao Saint Palace to raise his cultivation base. Therefore, there's nothing wrong with him joining the Tao Saint Palace sincerely. But we can't predict what will happen next. Lin Feng broke into Di Juyi's prison and released so many strong prisoners. Those prisoners pose a great threat to the Holy Tao Palace. We can't let this matter go. The Heavenway Infinite Diagram's words were very accurate. First, it said that Lin Feng joined the Tao Saint Palace sincerely. This removed Wu Yazi, Xia Yuanxiang, and Bai Yendi from the entire matter. Therefore, even if something unexpected happened later, it would have nothing to do with them. The Infinite Celestial Tao painting continued, saying that Lin Feng had released the prisoners from the celestial prison. He had also taken the prisoners from the celestial prison. That was a grave crime. That way, the 10,000 Suns Sander was supported by Di Ju Yi. So Di Ju Yi was comforted. "My lord, what should we do next?" Kong Mingdao asked. "Lin Feng thinks that he can get rid of the Dao Saint Palace just because he escaped. What a joke. I'll summon him back now." The Heaven Way Infinite diagrams, words clearly meant that it wanted to punish Lin Feng. Xia Yuanxiang wanted to say something, but Wu Yazi quickly shook his head at Xia Yuanxiang, signaling her to stop talking. Xia Yuanxiang sighed in her heart. She did not say anything else. The Heaven Way Infinite diagram began to try to activate the goo poison in Lin Feng's body and use the goo poison to control Lin Feng. Lin Feng had not been in the Dao Saint Palace for a long time, so the goo poison had yet to mature. The Heaven Way Infinite diagram knew this as well. But the boundless celestial Dao painting had a secret technique that could make the poison mature faster. But that way, the poison would be even more harmful to Lin Feng. The boundless celestial Dao painting didn't care about Lin Feng's life, but when it used a secret technique to make the poison mature faster, Lin Feng's body was filled with poison. However, when it used its secret techniques to activate the goo poison, the Heaven Way Infinite diagram realized that it had completely lost its connection with the goo poison. There was only one reason for this, and that was that the goo poison had been refined by Lin Feng. Lin Feng's methods are actually so powerful. I've underestimated him. The Heaven Way Infinite diagram's voice turned cold. "My lord, what happened?" Kong Mingdao asked. "Lin Feng. He actually managed to neutralize the goo poison I placed in his body," the Heaven Way Infinite diagram said with a gloomy expression. Hearing this, everyone could not help but be shocked. "Kong Mingdao, go look for him personally. If you find him, bring him back. If he dares to resist, kill him without mercy." The Heaven Way Infinite diagram said. "Yes, my lord." After receiving the order, Kong Mingdao left the Starry Hall to look for Lin Feng. The Heaven Way Infinite diagram had actually sent a human immortal expert like Kong Mingdao to deal with Lin Feng. It seemed that it was really angry. Chapter 43:19. Many cultivators searched for Lin Feng's whereabouts, but Lin Feng continued to wander the forest around the palace. He was still waiting for Yuji to appear. Meanwhile, Bibi, Blackie, and the others were devouring spirit fruits to increase their cultivation. Lin Feng's avatar was cultivating the Golem 9 Transformations immortal scripture. Lin Feng had already started studying this peerless celestial scripture a long time ago. But then again, just from the name of the Stone Golem 9 Transformations immortal scripture, one could tell that the Stone Golem race cultivated this divine ability. Only then would they be able to bring out the full power of the combat art. Lin Feng's avatar was a 9-orifice stone golem. It was the most heaven-defying of the golems. Lin Feng's stone golem cultivated the Golem 9 Transformations immortal scripture. It would be able to bring out the supreme scripture's full power. At the same time, Lin Feng's 9 orifices stone clone could also increase his cultivation level. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Although Lin Feng's methods were extraordinary and it was difficult for others to discover his whereabouts, some extremely powerful existences might appear. For example, if wandering immortals or even human immortals came looking for him, Lin Feng's concealment arts wouldn't be enough to avoid detection. Kong Mingdao was a very scheming person, and he was an extremely meticulous person. The boundless heavenly Dao diagram had sent him out to find Lin Feng, but he didn't immediately take action. Instead, he first analyzed where Lin Feng might be hiding. Lin Feng analyzed Lin Feng's hiding place from several angles. In the end, he came to the conclusion that Lin Feng might not be far from the Dao Sacred Palace. As a senior executive of the Dao Sacred Palace, he more or less knew a thing or two about the Golem Monarch's son. He had a feeling that Lin Feng might know about this as well. If Lin Feng knew, then Lin Feng wouldn't have gone too far. When chaos broke out, Lin Feng would most likely enter the Tao Sacred Palace and loot it. Relying on this speculation, Kong Mingdao quietly searched for Lin Feng's whereabouts around the palace. At night, Lin Feng sat cross-legged on the peak of a mountain, meditating. Suddenly, Lin Feng opened his eyes as if he had sensed something. Whoosh! Without a second thought, Lin Feng rose to his feet and flew into the distance. A cultivator stepped out of the void above, where he had been sitting cross-legged. That cultivator was none other than Kong Mingdao. He had indeed found Lin Feng's whereabouts. He'd wanted to sneak up to Lin Feng's side and kill Lin Feng. However, he hadn't expected Lin Feng to sense his presence. Thus, he'd fled before he'd arrived. Lin Feng, the Tao Sacred Palace has treated you well. How dare you betray us? You know your crime? Kong Mingdao said through gritted teeth. Lin Feng sneered. Treated me well? Don't you feel that you're going against your conscience? Even I feel embarrassed, but you're acting all sanctimonious and righteous. You're really a wolf. You're an ingrate. Kong Mingdao's voice was icy. Lin Feng sneered. I'm an ingrate. You're really shameless. Don't tell me you didn't know about the parasite poison in the pill you gave me. It was the Heavenly Tao's doing, wasn't it? That bastard doesn't have any good intentions. You know that too, so don't pretend to be a good person here. Humph. Kong Mingdao snorted coldly, his eyes flashing with coldness. He said coldly, I'll capture you first and hand you over to the Heavenly Tao's infinite diagram. Kong Mingdao was very fast, like a bolt of lightning. However, Lin Feng wasn't slow either. Kong Mingdao was a human immortal. Lin Feng was definitely no match for him, even if he used all his means. Thus, Lin Feng didn't want to fight Kong Mingdao head-on. Moreover, there was no need for him to do so. Lin Feng's goal was to rob the Tao Source Immortal Palace. He didn't care about anything else. One was fleeing while the other was chasing. It wasn't easy for Kong Mingdao to catch up to Lin Feng, but it wasn't easy for Lin Feng to get rid of Kong Mingdao either. Kong Mingdao was worthy of being a human immortal expert. His attainments in speed were terrifying. 10 days later, Lin Feng arrived at the depths of the ancient forest. Lin Feng saw a group of golden apes there. These golden apes were very powerful. Lin Feng rushed into their territory and hid. Kong Mingdao gave chase. He didn't conceal his aura and alerted the golden apes. Human immortal of the Tao Sacred Palace, you've crossed the line. 100-meter tall, golden ape said coldly. This endless mountain forest was called the ancient Tao Sacred Forest. There were a few extremely terrifying clans residing inside. These were all races that had existed since the era of titled gods. In the past few years, these races had experts who'd walked out of the divine stones. The golden apes were one of these races. I didn't mean to offend the golden apes. There's a human cultivator hiding in their territory. I want to find that brat. Kong Mingdao said. The huge golden ape couldn't help but snort coldly and say, Preposterous! Do you think you can search the territory of the golden apes just because you wanna? Leave now. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Are you not going to give the Tao Sacred Palace face? Kong Mingdao's expression also became extremely unsightly. The Tao Sacred Palace was the most powerful faction in the great Tao Sacred world. Even the strongest races didn't dare go against its words. However, this golden ape dared to openly oppose him. This infuriated Kong Mingdao. Rumble! The huge golden ape didn't even bother with Kong Mingdao. Instead, it launched an attack on Kong Mingdao. A huge palm slapped at Kong Mingdao. You're courting death. Kong Mingdao's gaze turned cold. He was a human immortal, so he naturally didn't fear this golden ape. In the face of the golden ape's attack, Kong Mingdao slammed his palm at the golden ape. The two palms, which were not proportional at all, collided together. Powerful energy shockwaves surged out, and the surrounding void was shattered. The two sides collided, and Kong Mingdao was sent flying. In this collision, just now, Kong Mingdao actually suffered a small loss. This made Kong Mingdao's face turn even uglier. "All right, I'll remember what happened today," Kong Mingdao said gloomily. Kong Mingdao said with a gloomy expression. He flew out, not daring to stay here any longer. After all, there were dozens of golden apes here. If all of them joined forces against him, he'd be in danger. Chapter 43:20. Kong Mingdao didn't want to put himself in danger. He quickly left. The gigantic golden ape didn't pursue Kong Mingdao either. After Kong Mingdao left, Lin Feng waited for a while, and then disappeared into the empty space. He wanted to leave without anyone noticing. "You've hidden yourself well," the giant golden ape sneered, then pointed at the void. Bang! The void shattered, and Lin Feng was forced out. "It's all a misunderstanding. I don't have any enmity against the golden apes. I was chased by that guy and had no choice but to enter this place. Why don't I leave some treasures for you, and you'll let me go?" Lin Feng smiled wryly and looked at the gigantic golden ape. This guy was too strong. Even Kong Mingdao, a human immortal, had been scared away by him, not to mention Lin Feng. Moreover, other than this particularly large golden ape, the other dozens of golden apes also stood up one after another. They looked coldly at Lin Feng. This place was hell on earth. "The golden apes will never be used by others. Little guy, die." The giant golden ape said coldly, said the gigantic golden ape icily. He stretched out his gigantic hand and pointed at Lin Feng. Lin Feng punched at the giant golden ape. Bang! The two sides collided, and Lin Feng was sent flying. He felt like all the bones in his body were about to fall apart. The giant golden ape was too terrifying. The combat strength it displayed was enough to make one despair. Rumble, the giant palm swatted at Lin Feng. It looked like it was about to hit Lin Feng. However, just then, that hand actually retracted. Lin Feng didn't know why the giant golden ape had suddenly retracted its attack, but he didn't think too much about it. He hurried away through the void. After Lin Feng left, a middle-aged cultivator walked out of the forest. "It's been a long time. How have you been?" The middle-aged cultivator asked as he looked at the gigantic golden ape. "Other than the decrease in strength, everything is fine," the golden ape said. When he saw the middle-aged cultivator, he was shocked. It seemed to be very excited. "A drop in strength can be recovered," the middle-aged cultivator said with a smile. "Brothershire, are you planning to make a move?" the golden ape asked. "Let's wait a few more days," the middle-aged cultivator said. "But why did you stop me from killing that brat?" the golden ape asked in confusion. "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." The middle-aged cultivator smiled. "Brothershire, have you seen that person from the Dao Saint Palace?" the golden ape asked. "I see it," the middle-aged cultivator said. The golden great ape said, "I wanted to kill him, but if the battle started, I might not be able to take the safety of my clansmen into consideration, and there might be casualties among my clansmen, so I didn't do it." The middle-aged cultivator said, "You did the right thing. Given Brothershire's strength, killing him shouldn't be difficult. Why don't you do it?" The middle-aged cultivator smiled and said, "He's not worthy." Lin Feng didn't know that a mysterious middle-aged cultivator had appeared after he left. He was still a little confused. He didn't know why the golden ape had suddenly stopped attacking. The golden ape probably had its own considerations. However, Lin Feng didn't know the details. After leaving the area where the golden ape was, Lin Feng didn't stop. He continued to fly through the forest. Suddenly, a huge net appeared. It fell from the sky. It enveloped Lin Feng. That big net was also a powerful treasure. After Lin Feng was enveloped by the net, he had a feeling that he couldn't avoid it. This big net was very strange. It gave people a feeling that the net of heaven was wide, but not wide enough to pass through. Lin Feng, let's see how you can escape. A smug voice suddenly resounded in the forest. Following that, a woman stepped out. This woman was none other than Crown Prince Di Jue's woman, Nangong Lingwei. This woman's Dharma treasure was very strange. It directly bound Lin Feng. Lin Feng struggled. The more he struggled, the more he was bound. This is going to be troublesome. Lin Feng was speechless. He had no idea what this huge net was, but he couldn't avoid it. It was extremely strange. I didn't expect that I would fall into your hands. Lin Feng said with a gloomy expression. Lin Feng, do you know that you've committed a crime punishable by death? I'm here on the Crown Prince's orders to capture you. I'll bring you to the Crown Prince now. When the time comes, the Crown Prince will punish you. Nangong Lingwei said, as she looked coldly at Lin Feng. Lin Feng took a deep breath and asked, Where's Diju? You want to know about Shangguan Bingyun, right? Shangguan Bingyun is being chased by the Crown Prince. She fled to a space-time reversal to hide. However, the Crown Prince has already blocked the exit. After I bring you to the Crown Prince can use you to threaten Shangguan Bingyun. I wonder if Shangguan Bingyun will come out because she wants to save you. His Highness the Crown Prince has always been eyeing Shangguan Bingyun's beauty. If Shangguan Bingyun is caught by His Highness the Crown Prince, from now on there will be another beauty in His Highness' harem. Nangong Lingwei said, Di Ju is courting death. I'll kill him. Lin Feng said with a sneer. You've already become a prisoner, yet you still dare to say such shameless words. I have to say that you're really thick-skinned. Nangong Lingwei looked at Lin Feng with contempt. She quickly arrived in front of Lin Feng and released numerous talismans. Those talismans moved towards Lin Feng and oppressed him. Currently, Lin Feng was restrained by the net and could not use his dermic powers. However, Nangong Lingwei was a cautious person. She was still worried. Therefore, that's why he wanted to oppress Lin Feng again. However, at this moment, Lin Feng launched a soul attack. The net was indeed powerful. It could restrain Lin Feng's body and suppress Lin Feng to the point that he could not use his dermic powers. However, a soul attack did not require the circulation of dermic powers. A powerful soul power instantly surged into Nangong Lingwei's mind and then turned into Luya's star map that blasted toward Nangong Lingwei's soul. Such a sudden attack shocked Nangong Lingwei, but he reacted quickly. His soul power also circulated, and Nangong Lingwei executed his soul divine ability to resist Luya's star map attack. However, Lin Feng's soul attack was too powerful. It instantly destroyed Nangong Lingwei's soul divine ability. Nangong Lingwei felt as though she was struck by lightning. She fell to the ground and fainted. Chapter 43:21. After seeing that Nangong Lingwei had fainted, Lin Feng's face finally revealed a relieved expression. Nangong Lingwei was powerful, and her magic treasure was strange. However, her soul divine ability was clearly inferior to his. This was the main reason why Nangong Lingwei was knocked unconscious. Now, Lin Feng could finally relax. He began to try to break free from the restraints of this large net. Soon, Lin Feng discovered that when his body stopped struggling, this large net would become looser and looser. If he struggled, this large net would immediately tighten. It was extremely strange. This was the first time Lin Feng had seen such a large net. Under normal circumstances, anyone who was bound would probably struggle with all their might. Previously, Lin Feng had also struggled with all his might, so he was bound more and more tightly if he had not knocked out Nangong Lingwei. Lin Feng would not have had enough time to study this large net. If he did not have so much time to study this large net, he naturally would not have been able to discover its secret. In the end, this large net was completely loosened. Lin Feng was released from his duties. What a good treasure! A smile appeared on Lin Feng's face. He picked up this large net and erased the spiritual force that Nangong Lingwei had left in it. Then he imprinted his own spiritual force on it. This treasure was suitable for attacking the other party unexpectedly. It was very likely that the other party would be caught off guard. The reason why Lin Feng was bound by this large net was because he was caught off guard by Nangong Lingwei. After refining this large net, Lin Feng found out that this large net was called the Immortal Capturing Net. It had an unfathomable and terrifying power. Lin Feng put away this treasure and looked at Nangong Lingwei. Nangong Lingwei's injuries were not serious. She had only fainted. He hugged Nangong Lingwei in his arms and quickly left. Nangong Lingwei blinked slightly. She still felt dizzy. She was trying her best to recall what had happened. Not long after, Nangong Lingwei finally remembered what had happened. Her expression was shocked. Almost instinctively, she wanted to get up. However, she realized that her body had been restrained, and she could not move at all. "You're awake? How does it feel to be a prisoner?" A voice rang out. Nangong Lingwei looked over, and her eyes were filled with fear. It was Lin Feng, that detestable man. Now that she had fallen into this man's hands, she did not dare to imagine what kind of terrifying things she would encounter. Nangong Lingwei would not let go of any chance to escape. She said, "Lin Feng, as long as you agree to let me go, I'll persuade His Highness to stop attacking you. What do you think?" Lin Feng chuckled and said, "Nangong Lingwei, do you really think that I'm afraid of Di Ju Yi? Let me tell you, he is nothing to me, nothing to me. What will it take for you to let me go?" Nangong Lingwei bit her lip and said, she couldn't help but worry about her own safety. "Are you afraid too? I thought you were a woman who was not afraid of anything," said Lin Feng sarcastically. Nangong Lingwei tried her best to calm herself down. Only by calming down could she negotiate with Lin Feng calmly. However, Nangong Lingwei sadly realized that, no matter how hard she tried, she could no longer maintain her calm at this moment. Right now, her heart was in a complete panic. "It was indeed my fault. I apologize to you. We can sit down and negotiate. We can find the perfect solution. What do you think?" said Nangong Lingwei. She really hoped that Lin Feng would sit down and negotiate with her. However, how could Lin Feng negotiate with Nangong Lingwei? You have the heavenly Yin body, a supreme-grade human cauldron, and Di Jue has given you all kinds of things to handle. It seems like you're very favored by Di Jue. No wonder you're so loyal to him. Di Jue has kept your primordial Yin. It seems like I'm going to benefit from it, said Lin Feng. "If you dare to touch me, His Highness the Crown Prince will definitely kill you." After hearing Lin Feng's words, Nangong Lingwei was so scared that her face turned pale. She wanted to use Di Jue to intimidate Lin Feng, although she knew, at this moment, it was very likely that it would be useless for her to use Di Jue, because Lin Feng was not afraid of Di Jue from the beginning. "Ha ha ha ha, I will kill Di Jue sooner or later." Lin Feng could not help but laugh. After obtaining Nangong Lingwei's primordial Yin, Lin Feng's cultivation realm quickly broke through from the peak of the 10th Heaven Emperor realm to the middle of the 10th Heaven Emperor realm, then the high of the 10th Heaven Emperor realm, then the peak of the 10th Heaven Emperor realm. Finally, he broke through to the quasi-holy Emperor realm. Lin Feng's glabella flickered with the light of tribulation. This meant that Lin Feng could already pass through the tribulation. Nangong Lingwei, indeed, had the heavenly Yin body. The effect of her primordial Yin on her cultivation realm was too obvious. Lin Feng sat cross-legged and circulated the magic power in his body to suppress the light of tribulation in his glabella. Now, Lin Feng did not plan to break through to the Holy Emperor realm. This was because Lin Feng did not have the confidence to break through to the Holy Emperor realm. Breaking through to the Holy Emperor realm, it was too difficult. Lin Feng was very clear about this. When breaking through, he needed a vast amount of energy. Lin Feng had a large amount of immortal stones, but they were all low-grade immortal stones. Lin Feng's breakthrough was different from ordinary cultivators. When ordinary cultivators broke through to the loose immortal realm, it was not a problem to use low-grade immortal stones to provide energy for the breakthrough. However, Lin Feng was different. Lin Feng's accumulation was too strong. When he broke through, the requirements for various kinds of energy were extremely harsh. Low-grade immortal stones did not have much of an effect on Lin Feng. Only higher-grade immortal stones had a more significant effect on Lin Feng. However, it was clear that the current Lin Feng was unable to obtain higher-grade immortal stones at all. There were very few immortal stones in the mortal world. Even if there were, they would be low-grade immortal stones. If he wanted to find higher-grade immortal stones, he would have to go to the Undying Realm, the Supreme Three Realms, the Wasteland, and other places. Therefore, Lin Feng set his sights on the Tao Source Immortal Palace in the Tao Source Immortal Palace. If he used those Tao Source Immortal Palaces to provide energy for the breakthrough, he would definitely be able to complete the breakthrough. Not only would he be able to complete the breakthrough, Demon Lord, BB, Little Dragon, Little Black Dragon Rabbit, Emperor Archaic, Immemorial Ancestral Insect, his avatar, and even the White Jade Toad could use the Tao Source Immortal Pills to increase their strength. In the end, Lin Feng suppressed the light of tribulation in his glabella. After doing this, he let out a sigh of relief. For the time being, he did not have to worry about the lightning tribulation suddenly descending. Then Lin Feng looked at Nangong Lingwei, who was also sitting cross-legged and cultivating. Chapter 43:22. After waiting for about 2 hours, Nangong Lingwei had also woken up from her cultivation. She looked at Lin Feng hatefully. She looked as though she wanted to cut Lin Feng into 1,000 pieces. "You're quite bold. How dare you look at me like that? Are you asking for a beating?" Lin Feng looked at Nangong Lingwei and said, "You're a bastard, a devil. You're shameless." Nangong Lingwei began to curse Lin Feng. Of course, she had a reason to curse Lin Feng. Lin Feng said indifferently, "Don't you think that being my concubine is more fortunate than being Di Jue's concubine?" Nangong Lingwei looked at Lin Feng fiercely and said, "Right now, I just want to smash you into a pulp with my mace." Lin Feng clicked his tongue in wonder and said, "I really didn't expect that under such a beautiful appearance, there's actually such a wild heart." Nangong Lingwei snorted coldly. She no longer paid attention to Lin Feng. Lin Feng said, "Do you think that Di Jue will give you his own strength later? If you follow Di Jue, you'll die a horrible death in the future. You can think about what I said." Nangong Lingwei could not help but bite her lips. She had actually thought about what Lin Feng said many times, although she was unwilling to admit it. However, sometimes she had to admit that what Lin Feng said was exactly the same as what Lin Feng said. Di Jue, he was indeed the kind of person that Lin Feng said He was. However, in the past, her fate had already been decided. It could not be changed at all. However, now, her fate had changed. Although she did not know what the future would be like, it would definitely be very different from before. After all, Nangong Lingwei was already Lin Feng's woman. When she calmed down and looked at Lin Feng again, he seemed to be much more pleasing to the eye. Lin Feng was very handsome, very young, and very powerful. His future was limitless. Most importantly, Lin Feng's character was gentle, determined, sunny, and kind. On the other hand, Di Ju was the kind of person who would do anything to achieve his goal. The two of them made a comparison. Lin Feng was indeed a better home. Of course, there were also some psychological hints that played a role in this. After all, Nangong Lingwei could no longer turn back. Nangong Lingwei knew what kind of person Di Jue was. If she were to return to Di Jue's side now, she would definitely not have a good ending. I'll give you half an hour. After half an hour, we'll depart to the place where Di Jue is, Lin Feng said. Then he walked out. Nangong Lingwei bit her lip and clenched her fists before letting go. The world of cultivators was also a world dominated by men. Women were destined to be mere accessories. Nangong Lingwei sighed. Now, she could only pray that Lin Feng would treat her better. An hour later, the radiant Nangong Lingwei walked out. When Lin Feng saw Nangong Lingwei, his eyes lit up slightly. Then he said, "Beautiful, you're really beautiful." After hearing Lin Feng's praise, Nangong Lingwei could not help but feel a little happy. Then, Nangong Lingwei was slightly shocked. Could it be that the current her, had she really started to care about Lin Feng's opinion of her? However, it did feel good to be praised by Lin Feng. Lin Feng and Nangong Lingwei quickly flew toward the place where Di Jue was. Half a month later, the two of them arrived at that area. That place was located in the deepest part of the ancient forest of Dao Saint. Shattered space-time was everywhere there. It was an extremely dangerous place. Nangong Lingwei appeared there alone. Swoosh! In the distance, a huge white bone throne flew over rapidly. There was a cultivator sitting on the white bone throne. That cultivator was none other than Di Jue. That white bone throne was a supreme treasure. It was said that it was a treasure left behind by a ghost lord. This treasure was obtained by Di Jue. "Where's that Lin Feng? Didn't you catch him?" Di Jue asked as he looked at Nangong Lingwei. "Young master, that Lin Feng is extremely cunning. He escaped." Nangong Lingwei said. "Escaped?" Di Jue could not help but frown slightly. Suddenly his face sank. His eyes were fixed on Nangong Lingwei. "You actually lost your primordial, Yin." Di Jue stood up from the white bone throne. His voice was filled with endless killing intent. Who did this?" Di Jue's voice suddenly became sharp. Di Jue. He treated Nangong Lingwei as his exclusive property. Now that Nangong Lingwei had lost her primordial Yin, this almost drove Di Jue crazy. This was something that Di Jue would never allow. He could go and snatch the women of other cultivators. This was not the first time that Di Jue had done such a thing. However, Di Jue would never allow anyone to lay a finger on his woman. "I hope to leave you from now on because I found my true love," Nangong Lingwei said. Her words provoked Di Jue so much that he was fuming with rage. At this moment, Di Jue wished he could kill Nangong Lingwei with a slap. "Slut! Slut! Slut!" Di Jue cursed loudly. "How dare you betray me? You're dead. Not only are you dead, but your lover is dead as well. I won't kill you right away. I'll suppress you first. After I capture your lover, I'll kill all of you together." At that time, I'll tear all of you into pieces. Otherwise, I won't be able to vent the hatred in my heart." The moment his words left his mouth, Di Jue walked toward Nangong Lingwei in an attempt to suppress her. In his rage, Di Jue's perception of the outside world, his control of the dermic powers in his body, and even his body's reaction had greatly weakened. Swoosh! At this moment, Lin Feng stepped out from the void and appeared behind Di Jue. Then, he threw a punch at Di Jue. Lin Feng appeared without a sound. He did not even cause any energy fluctuation. He was just like the most powerful assassin. He had cultivated his concealment technique to the peak. Di Jue did not notice Lin Feng at all, just as Lin Feng's terrifying punch was about to land on Di Jue's body. However, right at this moment, Di Jue actually turned around quickly and threw a punch at Lin Feng. Bang! Both of them collided violently. The powerful energy instantly caused the void to collapse. Lin Feng was sent flying by Di Jue's terrifying punch. Lin Feng was extremely shocked. Di Jue should have the sudden inspiration ability. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to sense the incoming danger. Of course, what shocked Lin Feng the most was the combat strength that Di Jue displayed. Di Jue's sudden attack had actually sent him flying. Di Jue's combat strength was a little too terrifying. However, it was normal when he thought about it. After all, Di Jue was a monster who was at the same level as him. Now that Di Jue had broken through to the bodiless, immortal realm, no one knew how powerful he was. He was the only one who knew how terrifying his current combat strength was. "You're the lover of that slut, Nangong Lingwei? Who are you? How dare you touch my woman?" Di Jue looked at Lin Feng coldly. His eyes were gleaming with killing intent. Chapter 43:23. Of course, Di Jue had heard of Lin Feng's reputation. However, he had never seen Lin Feng before. Therefore, when he saw Lin Feng now, he did not recognize Lin Feng at all. "Ha ha ha ha! Don't you know who I am? I'm the person you're looking for," Lin Feng said with a laugh. "What? You're Lin Feng?" Di Jue's expression suddenly turned gloomy. His eyes were shining with killing intent. The name Lin Feng was a name that Di Jue could not help but hate to the core. He had finally captured Lin Yunsong, but he was rescued by Lin Feng. Di Jue was still furious when he recalled this matter. Di Jue could not wait to cut Lin Feng into 1,000 pieces. However, he had yet to avenge his old hatred. Both of them had a new feud. Now, even his woman, the woman that he valued the most, had been snatched away by Lin Feng. Such hatred could not be washed away even if all the water in the 5 lakes and 4 seas were washed away. Nangong Lingwei flew toward Lin Feng. She came to Lin Feng's side. Lin Feng hugged Nangong Lingwei in his arms right in front of Di Jue. Lin Feng laughed. He looked at Di Jue and said provocatively, "Di Jue, I have to thank you for nurturing such a rare beauty like Nangong Lingwei. Now, Nangong Lingwei is my woman. Don't worry, I'll take good care of her in the future." "You're courting death. You're courting death." Di Jue roared furiously. He was such a high and mighty existence. He had always been the one who snatched other people's women and flaunted it in front of them. When had he ever been humiliated like this? Di Jue had been keeping Nangong Lingwei's primordial lien so that he could use it at a critical moment. Therefore, for so many years, he had been nurturing Nangong Lingwei. He had never touched Nangong Lingwei. However, now, years of nurturing, years of hard work. Now, it was all for Lin Feng. Anger, anger, anger. Right now, Di Jue was burning with rage. He even felt as if his body was about to be ignited by the flames. She saw Lin Feng and Nangong Lingwei showing off their love in front of her. Di Ju only wanted to kill Lin Feng and Nangong Lingwei. "You adulterous couple, I'll take your lives," Di Jue roared and charged toward Lin Feng and Nangong Lingwei. Whoosh! With a flash of light, the halberd appeared in his hand. Di Ju gently waved the Fangtian halberd in his hand in the air. The white bone throne flew towards Lin Feng. From the white bone throne, thousands of soldiers and horses flew out. The army was made up of thousands of skeletons, and they pounced toward Lin Feng and Nangong Lingwei. Lin Feng didn't want Nangong Lingwei to participate in this battle. Nangong Lingwei's cultivation level was naturally extremely powerful. If Nangong Lingwei used all her means, she might be qualified to participate. However, Lin Feng was worried that Di Jue would do his best to kill Nangong Lingwei, who had betrayed him. Therefore, he might as well not let Nangong Lingwei take the risk. If Di Jue were to kill a top-notch beauty like Nangong Lingwei, wouldn't Lin Feng cry to death? Lin Feng sent Nangong Lingwei into the time and space. Then Lin Feng took out many Dharma treasures. Dong, dong, dong. The heavenly drum sounded and reverberated through heaven and earth. The heavenly drum created heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals. The heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals charged toward the skeleton army that was created by the white bone throne. Both parties collided in the air. Afterward, under the control of Lin Feng, many of his Dharma treasures charged toward Di Jue. "Oh, you can actually multitask. Previously, I heard from the Heavenly Tao Infinite diagram that your innate talent is not far from mine. I didn't believe it at first, but now I do. Your Dharma treasures are indeed powerful, and you have enough of them. However, multitasking will make you unable to unleash the true power of these Dharma treasures. A cultivator can only unleash the full power of their Dharma treasures when they're multitasking. In a battle of life and death, the slightest difference in combat strength might be able to change the outcome of this battle." Di Jue said coldly. The boundless ocean, suddenly Di Jue made his move. The Fangtian halberd in his hand swept forward. All of a sudden, a huge ocean appeared in the void. That vast ocean was boundless and boundless. A loud, rumbling sound reverberated in the air. One after another, huge waves swept across heaven and earth. Each of the huge waves was as high as 10,000 meters. The power they contained was simply unimaginable. The huge waves surged toward Lin Feng. Bang, bang, bang. Lin Feng's Dharma treasures collided with the huge waves violently. The powerful Dharma treasures were actually sent flying by the huge waves. Upon seeing this, Lin Feng could not help but have a shocked expression on his face. Di Jue's cultivation base was indeed too terrifying. "Lin Feng, no matter how monstrous you are, no matter how talented you are, however, there's one thing that you can't ignore. That is, your cultivation is not strong enough. Even if your innate talent is not much different from mine, your cultivation base is too low. As for me, I've already broken through to the bodiless celestial stage. The gap between our cultivation bases is difficult to make up for. Therefore, you'll die today. Have you thought about how you're going to die?" Di Jue asked coldly. Step by step, he walked toward Lin Feng. The fighting spirit in his body was getting stronger and more terrifying. Pressure. Lin Feng felt an unprecedented pressure. Di Jue's words made sense. Geniuses could challenge those with higher cultivation bases. 1 level higher, 2 levels higher, or even 3 levels higher. The opponents that geniuses defeated in a cross-level challenge were those who were not as talented as them. If they encountered a cultivator who was as talented as them but had a huge gap in their cultivation bases, there would be no such thing as a cross-level challenge. This point, Lin Feng was very clear about it. Di Jue was also very clear about it. Therefore, even though he knew that Lin Feng had great potential, Di Jue still did not take Lin Feng seriously, because there was a gap in their cultivation bases. Lin Feng summoned his Dharma treasures back. Then, external incarnation, armor of the ruler, golden dwarf. The energy of the magic lotus surged into Lin Feng's body. After receiving the support of their energy, Lin Feng's combat strength began to increase tremendously. Then, he walked forward in the void. Oh, the great Tao of destiny, the power of destiny that has descended. Let me use the power of destiny to punish the lowly living being who dares to betray destiny. When Lin Feng finished his incantation, in heaven and earth, a long river of destiny condensed and swept toward Di Jue. The long river of destiny directly shrouded Di Jue. However, Di Jue walked through the long river of destiny. He was so powerful that the long river of destiny could not suppress Di Jue. Chapter 43:24. The Destiny Energy. You've actually mastered the Destiny Energy. How shocking! The Grand Tao of Destiny is the most difficult Grand Tao to grasp. Even I haven't grasped the Grand Tao of Destiny. Yet you have. Looks like I can't kill you right away. If I do, then I won't be able to obtain the inheritance of the Grand Tao of Destiny from you. I'll capture you and interrogate you about the Destiny Tao. Di Jue walked in the river of destiny. His voice was filled with endless coldness as he walked toward Lin Feng step by step. His eyes flashed with endless coldness. In his opinion, even if Lin Feng had mastered the Destiny Tao, he would not be able to fight against him. Lin Feng would not be able to escape, even if he had wings. He increased his speed in an attempt to charge out of the river of destiny. Lin Feng frowned. It seemed like the river of destiny could not trap Di Jue. Lin Feng did not plan to continue fighting with Di Jue. He planned to look for Yu Ji first. He would deal with Di Jue after he met up with Yu Ji. Di Jue was extremely terrifying. However, Lin Feng felt that if he joined forces with Yu Ji, they might be able to kill Di Jue. The moment Lin Feng thought of this, he no longer stayed. He quickly flew toward the shattered void in front of him. Swoosh! Lin Feng entered the shattered void in front of him. Whoosh! 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 Endless darkness shrouded the world. It was pitch black before his eyes. The storm was mixed with the time and space energy. When the storm swept over, Lin Feng discovered that his lifespan was constantly decreasing. The time energy in the storm was devouring Lin Feng's lifespan at a great rate. Lin Feng activated his Eye of Death. The Eye of Death emitted a powerful death force that resisted the devouring of the time force. Lin Feng stood in the space-time storm. For a moment, he did not know where to look for Yu Ji. It was no wonder that Di Jue did not enter this place to look for Yu Ji. This place was too dangerous. If a space-time storm were to erupt, even loose immortal level experts would most likely perish here. Even though the space-time storm continued to blow steadily. However, the power of time within the space-time storm would also strip away a cultivator's lifespan. Furthermore, deep inside was a world of darkness. It was impossible to determine the direction. Once one got lost in such a world, only death would await them. Where should I find Yu Ji? Lin Feng frowned. His expression was very solemn. Yu Ji was Lin Feng's good friend. Lin Feng was naturally very worried about Yu Ji. But now, Lin Feng didn't know where to go to find Yu Ji. Just as Lin Feng was feeling extremely anxious, suddenly, Lin Feng discovered something that surprised him. Whoosh! The next moment, Lin Feng's hand flashed with light, and a treasure flew out. That treasure It was the mysterious compass that Lin Feng had obtained before. This compass, called the heart compass, was very strange. Rumor had it that the heart compass could point to any place one wanted to go. However, Lin Feng had never been able to figure out the secret of the heart compass. Therefore, many times he could not be sure if the legend was true. Some time ago, the heart compass acted strangely. The needle of the heart compass spun extremely quickly. However, not long after, the heart compass stopped spinning. After that, the heart compass did not act strangely again. However, at this moment, the heart compass actually spun again. This time, the speed of the heart compass's spinning was not very fast. Although the spinning speed was not fast, the heart compass was spinning at a very uniform speed. Buzz! Suddenly, a divine light surged out from the heart compass. In the divine light, a small beast appeared. The small beast was actually a lightning mink. Lin Feng was shocked. The heart compass changed and revealed a lightning mink. Was this the heart compass's weapon spirit? However, why was the heart compass's weapon spirit a lightning mink? Lin Feng immediately thought of Grandpa Mink, that scammer. Back then, Lin Feng was nearly killed by Grandpa Mink. However, Grandpa Mink was caught in his own trap and was killed in the end. Right now, he had become an undead spirit on the boat of curses, unable to leave the boat of curses for all eternity. And this lightning mink before him was the second one that Lin Feng had seen. This lightning mink had a sneaky look. When it caught sight of Lin Feng, it let out a haughty look and asked loudly, "Kid, what era is it now?" Lin Feng rolled his eyes and said, "What are you talking about? You'd better be more polite when you talk to yours truly. Otherwise, do you believe that yours truly will destroy you? You've got some guts. Do you know who this great immortal is? How dare you speak to this immortal in such a tone? I think you don't want to live anymore. This immortal can destroy you in a matter of minutes." The lightning mink was still as arrogant as ever. With a flick of his finger, Lin Feng sent the mink flying. "Io, you damned bastard! How dare you blaspheme this great immortal's supreme immortal might? You deserve to die 10,000 times. The lightning mink flew back and cried out fiercely. Its body was extremely small, only the size of a palm. However, the ratio of its arrogant attitude to its body, it was completely disproportionate. Supreme immortal might, you don't have any immortal might to speak of. You're just the heart plate's artifact spirit. Lin Feng curled his lips and said, "So what if I'm an artifact spirit?" Back then, this immortal was the strongest artifact cultivator. However, I was schemed against, and my cultivation was forcefully removed. Otherwise, this immortal could kill you with a sneeze. "You believe me?" the lightning mink said, arrogantly. Lin Feng asked, "Who removed your cultivation?" "The sovereigns of the wastelands. They're too despicable. They joined forces to scheme against this immortal. Otherwise, how could this immortal have fallen into their trap?" The mink continued. Lin Feng couldn't help but feel apprehensive. He didn't know if the mink was speaking the truth or if it was just bragging. Lin Feng had a feeling. He had a feeling that the mink was bragging. It was very likely that the mink was a great con man. Therefore, he didn't care about the mink's bragging. Lin Feng didn't really believe it. "What's your name?" Lin Feng asked. "You can call this immortal the Great Sage Mink." The lightning mink had an arrogant look on its face. "You call yourself a sage mink? Great immortal!" Lin Feng was speechless. Truly, a dragon in the shallows is toyed with by shrimps, a tiger in the plains is mocked by dogs. The mink was furious when it heard Lin Feng's disdainful words. It began to mock Lin Feng. Lin Feng stretched out his right hand again and flicked it at the mink. Bang! Lin Feng's finger landed hard on the mink's body. Lin Feng sent the mink flying again. Chapter 43:25. F***CK. Are you done yet, brat? The marten was so angry that it trembled all over. It flew back and glared at Lin Feng fiercely. It looked like it wanted to tear Lin Feng into pieces. To think that the mighty sage marten great deity was bullied by a young junior. If news of this were to spread, the consequences would be unimaginable. If word got out, it would cause a huge uproar. Lin Feng said, "Don't try to act cool in front of me. Even if you used to be a god, your cultivation has dropped. Besides, the heart compass is my treasure. You are now my subordinate." What that the marten rolled its eyes and said, "You refined the heart compass while this great immortal was asleep, and you still have the nerve to say that it's yours." Lin Feng said, "It doesn't matter when I refined it. The heart compass is mine. I'm going to look for my good friend Yuji now. Help me take a look and tell me where I should go to find her." The marten said, "If you want to activate the heart compass, you have to pay a price." Lin Feng flicked the marten away again and said, "It's my treasure. I can use it whenever I want. Why should I pay a price?" The marten was depressed. It flew back and said helplessly, "I didn't make this rule. Something like a heart plate shouldn't exist in the world. It's impossible to forge a heart plate under normal circumstances. Therefore, some special methods are needed to forge a heart plate. The person who refined the heart compass purposely made it into a flawed treasure. If the world is lacking one, all things can be born. If the heart compass is refined perfectly, it will be destroyed by the heavenly Tao. However, if the heart compass is refined with a flaw, it's still not completely refined. It's precisely because of this flaw that the heart compass survived. Otherwise, the heart compass would have been destroyed long ago. The reason why you have to pay a price to activate the heart compass is because you have to pay these things to make up for the huge amount of energy consumed when the heart compass is damaged. The harder it is to find the person or place you are looking for, the greater the price you have to pay." Lin Feng finally understood what was going on after hearing Sacred Marten's explanation. He looked at Sacred Marten and asked, "According to what you said, I can go anywhere I want as long as I pay a certain price, right?" The Sacred Marten Immortal said, "In theory, that is the case. However, that is not the case in reality. This is because the heart compass's ability to deduce things is closely related to my own abilities. Now that my cultivation has declined to such an extent, there are many things that I cannot deduce. Unless my cultivation is able to increase, if I can recover to my peak, then even if you want to find the door of everlasting life, I will be able to find it in the Supreme Divine Court." "How can I recover your strength?" Lin Feng asked. "There are 3 ways to restore this great immortal's cultivation to its former peak. The first way is that when you make a deal with the heart compass, a portion of the price you pay will be consumed when the heart compass operates, while another portion will be turned into offerings. The heart compass will be able to provide feedback to this great immortal, allowing me to recover my cultivation. The second way is that I can recover my cultivation by cultivating normally. The third way is that I can devour some special things to increase my cultivation. I want to make a deal with the heart compass to find Yuji. What do I have to pay?" Lin Feng asked. "The first deal will be 10 million immortal stones and 500 immortal herbs." Sacred Marten Immortal said, "Damn, you're asking for too much." Lin Feng said speechlessly. Sacred Marten Immortal said, "Please don't say that. I'm not asking for too much. It's the heart compass's will. I'm just passing the message on behalf of the heart compass. To be honest, with our current relationship, I have no problem serving you for free. But the key is that the heart compass's deduction requires both me and the heart compass to act at the same time. I'll agree to it, but the heart compass won't. There's no other way. Help me negotiate with the heart compass." Lin Feng said, "All right, "Kid, you don't look like a rich man. I'll be a good guy to the end," Grandpa Martin said. Then it muttered to the heart compass for a while, but no one knew what it was muttering. Soon, Grandpa Martin said, "I'm willing to put in a good word for you. After some bargaining, you'll pay 8 million immortal stones and 400 immortal herbs. The heart compass can help you deduce the whereabouts of that Yuji." Lin Feng nodded. As long as he could find Yuji, any price would be worth it. Of course, the smaller the price, the better. After all, these things were too precious. Lin Feng had gone to great lengths to collect these treasures. He took out 8 million immortal stones and 400 immortal herbs. The heart compass shook slightly. A powerful devouring power surged out. In an instant, the 8 million immortal stones and 400 immortal herbs were devoured. Sacred Martin, immortal, flew into the heart compass. Whoosh, 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 the needle on the heart compass spun rapidly. As time went by, the needle on the heart plate gradually slowed down. Finally, the needle of the heart compass stopped. The needle on the heart compass pointed in a direction. Lin Feng revealed a look of joy and quickly flew in the direction the needle on the heart compass was pointing. In front of him was a dark and boundless world. A space-time storm was raging wildly. Lin Feng was flying with extreme caution. In the darkness, his 6 senses were being oppressed by the darkness. Lin Feng could not see the situation in front of him very clearly. Under the guidance of the heart compass, Lin Feng flew all the way into the depths. He did not know where this shattered space-time was connected to. The only thing he knew was that this place was extremely dangerous. The space-time storm was extremely powerful. The slightest carelessness could lead to death. Rumble! Suddenly, a huge claw emerged from the darkness. That claw was like a mountain. It blotted out the sky and covered the sun. Its power was terrifying to the extent that people could not help but be aghast. That huge claw descended from the sky and slapped towards Lin Feng. Feeling the terrifying power contained in that claw, Lin Feng's face could not help but reveal an aghast expression. The power of that claw was simply too terrifying. It was simply terrifying. Whoosh! Lin Feng quickly moved to the left and dodged the attack of that huge claw. That huge claw did not hit Lin Feng. Lin Feng stood in the shattered space-time and looked into the distance. He could not see clearly what kind of beast it was. He could only see a blurry outline. That beast's body was simply too huge. It was as huge as an ancient divine mountain. The terrifying aura emitted from its body was suffocating. Chapter 43:26. Lin Feng didn't know what the hell that existence was, but it was incomparably terrifying. He was here to look for Yuji, but he didn't have the time to fight with that terrifying existence. Moreover, that existence was so terrifying. If he went through a great battle, it was very likely that he would fall at the hands of that terrifying existence. Lin Feng sped up and rushed towards the depths, but that terrifying existence didn't seem to want to let Lin Feng leave. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, the sound of wind swept through the world. A strong wind was blowing. It wanted to drag Lin Feng towards the monstrous beast. That monster wanted to swallow Lin Feng in one gulp. Danger! 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 It was hard to imagine what level that monster was at. With Lin Feng's powerful battle prowess, his body flew towards that monster uncontrollably. Just as the situation was critical, Lin Feng took out the hurricane pearl. This was a treasure that Lin Feng had obtained a long time ago, and it had worked wonders time and time again. This time was no exception. When Lin Feng took out the hurricane pearl, his body stabilized. No matter how strong the wind was, it was no longer able to sweep Lin Feng away. Lin Feng took advantage of this opportunity to fly towards the depths, and at this time, Lin Feng suddenly felt as if there was an extremely terrifying energy flying towards him from behind. He sped up and dodged the energy that was flying towards him from behind. Bang, bang, bang. At this time, the terrifying energy that was flying towards him from behind directly exploded, forming an earth-shattering shockwave, and even a huge black hole appeared. Once he was swallowed into the black hole, it would be a disaster. Fortunately, Lin Feng had already dodged the other party's terrifying attack in advance. Lin Feng successfully got rid of that unknown and terrifying existence. He sped up and flew in the direction indicated by the heart plate. The direction indicated by the heart plate was not fixed. In fact, the direction indicated by the heart plate was constantly changing. Lin Feng didn't know where he had gone. However, Lin Feng wasn't worried, since he had the heart plate. After finding Yuji, there was no problem for him and Yuji to use the heart plate to return to the Tao Saint Great World. Time passed day by day. The void in front of him suddenly became distorted. It was an extremely frightening place, and Lin Feng couldn't help but tremble in fear. Originally, Lin Feng wanted to take a detour. However, at this moment, Great Sage Martin's voice rang out from the heart plate. "The person you're looking for seems to be inside." "It's here?" Lin Feng was astonished. Then he frowned and looked at the distorted void in front of him. Lin Feng summoned his ruler's armor. The sovereign's armor protected his body. Then Lin Feng entered the distorted space in front of him. Lin Feng used the Tao of Space to resist the distorted space-time power. The Tao of Space played an extremely crucial role at this time. Lin Feng used the Tao of Space to go deeper into the distorted space. 10 days later, Lin Feng still hadn't found Yuji. Lin Feng's Tao of Space was gradually unable to resist the distorted space-time power around him. Yeah. Bibi's voice rang out in Lin Feng's mind. "Little guy, do you have a way to resist the distorted space-time power?" Lin Feng transmitted his voice to Bibi. Yeah. Bibi flew out and stood on Lin Feng's shoulder. Then it patted its chest with its little paws. The little guy's study of the Tao of Space was incomparably deep. This was a racial talent, a racial ability. Others couldn't be envious of it. Bibi waved its little paws and sent out beams of 7-colored immortal light, which then enveloped it and Lin Feng. When the 7-colored celestial lights surrounded him, Lin Feng sensed that the space and time strength around him was getting weaker and weaker. Lin Feng was delighted. 5 days later, the distorted space-time power was even more terrifying. Bibi was already having a hard time resisting it. Lin Feng and Bibi joined forces to resist the distorted space-time power. After joining forces, they were once again able to resist the distorted space-time power. 3 days later, they saw a huge golden light barrier appear in front of them. The golden light barrier floated in the dark space. They didn't know what was inside the golden light barrier. "What's that?" Lin Feng couldn't help but take a deep breath when he saw the golden light barrier. The appearance of the huge golden light shield in this place was very strange in itself. We're here. That woman is inside." Great Immortal Sage Martin's voice rang out. Then the heart disk turned into a beam of light and flew into the space-time space. The heart disk probably went back to refine the resources Lin Feng gave it. Lin Feng tried to approach the golden light barrier, but when Lin Feng got close to the golden light barrier, golden runes appeared on the golden light barrier and blasted towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng was shocked and quickly retreated. The golden runes blasted into the void. Suddenly, the void collapsed. What a terrifying attack! Lin Feng couldn't help but take a deep breath. "Demon Lord, what is this golden light barrier?" "It doesn't look like a light barrier formed by a restriction," said Lin Feng telepathically. The Demon Lord said, "Indeed, It doesn't look like a light barrier formed by a restriction. Shout, and see if Yuji can hear you. Lin Feng nodded and began to shout, Yuji, can you hear me? Yuji, I'm coming for you. Can you hear me? Lin Feng shouted for a long time, but Yuji didn't answer Lin Feng. It seemed that Yuji didn't hear Lin Feng's voice at all. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown. If Yuji couldn't hear him, he had to think of a way to enter. I wonder, how is Yuji doing inside? Moreover, how to enter was a rather tricky problem. Lin Feng hadn't thought of a way to enter yet. The main reason was that the golden light barrier's offensive power was too strong. If he got closer, he would be attacked by the golden light barrier. Therefore, it wasn't easy to enter the golden light barrier. The demon lord said, obviously, it's impossible to break in by force unless you're strong enough. But with your current strength, you can't do that. Since you can't succeed by force, you can use gentler methods. Or you can sense this golden light barrier and see if you can form a connection with it. If you can, perhaps you can use this special connection to enter the golden light barrier. Chapter 43:27. Lin Feng followed the demon lord's instructions and sat cross-legged. He carefully sensed the golden barrier. Lin Feng hoped to establish a close connection with the golden barrier as soon as possible. However, this was very difficult. When Lin Feng carefully sensed the golden barrier, most of the time, he could not sense anything. The golden barrier was very strange. There was an invisible and intangible strength blocking Lin Feng's connection with the golden dome. However, in the end, Lin Feng succeeded. He sensed the aura of the golden barrier. The golden barrier seemed to have a life of its own. Lin Feng tried to communicate with the golden barrier. I'm looking for someone, a woman. She's very important to me. Can you let me in? Lin Feng asked. A voice came from the golden light shield. Entering, it is simply a dead end. Once you enter, you will never be able to come out. You will be completely trapped inside. Therefore, you should quickly leave this place. Don't even think about entering it. Of course, Lin Feng would not leave. He knew that there was a mountain of blades and a sea of fire in front of him. Lin Feng wanted to give it a try. He said, I'm not afraid. I just want to go in and find my friend. Can you let me in? Why don't you listen to my advice? A person only has one life. If you take a wrong step, your life might end. Therefore, you must know how to cherish your life. Moreover, it's not worth it to lose your life for others. You should understand what I mean. The voice that came out from the golden light continued. Lin Feng said, I understand, but I don't agree. A person's life is indeed incomparably precious. However, sometimes there are things that are even more important than life. For example, friendship. Friendship? Is it purely friendship? Are there no other feelings mixed in? The voice continued to ask. Lin Feng said, maybe there are, maybe there aren't. However, regardless of whether there are or not, I will enter. Can you let me in? If I enter, I will have no regrets even if I die. After hearing Lin Feng's words, the voice from the golden barrier said, since you insist, I can send you in. However, you will be completely trapped inside and will never be able to come out again. I'm already mentally prepared. Lin Feng said. Next, the golden barrier emitted a ball of golden energy. That golden energy was moving straight towards Lin Feng to envelop him. After the ball of golden energy enveloped Lin Feng was pulled into the energy barrier. When Lin Feng arrived inside the energy barrier, he immediately discovered that there was an incomparably huge palace inside. The palace was thousands of meters tall and occupied an area of tens of thousands of acres. Lin Feng had never seen such a gigantic palace. He didn't know who had built it either. Yuji has already entered the palace, Yuji? Lin Feng could not help but muttered. He had Bei temporarily returned to the space-time continuum. Then, Lin Feng walked towards the huge palace. He saw many skeletons on the ground in front of him. It seemed that cultivators had been here before, but they had never entered the palace. They had already fallen. Yuji, are you there? Lin Feng shouted loudly, but soon he discovered that there seemed to be a special law power here. And that special law power, Lin Feng's voice could not travel too far. Lin Feng had no choice but to enter the huge palace to look for Yuji. Of course, Lin Feng was extremely interested in entering the huge palace. Such a huge palace. Who created it? Lin Feng's heart was filled with countless doubts. Was there a powerful treasure in this palace? Or was there a powerful inheritance? Lin Feng walked towards the huge palace. When he was about 1,000 meters away from the palace, Lin Feng felt that an extremely terrifying and strange power had appeared around the palace. For the time being, Lin Feng did not know what kind of power that power belonged to. He entered that area. Clang! Suddenly, an invisible and intangible strength immediately bombarded Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng was directly sent flying. That invisible force was blocked by Lin Feng's Dominator's armor. If it wasn't for Lin Feng's Dominator's armor blocking it, Lin Feng felt that invisible force was enough to pierce through his body. This was an extremely terrifying scene. Lin Feng couldn't help but take a deep breath. Clearly, this distance of about 1,000 meters was a very dangerous distance. That invisible force was very terrifying, but fortunately, Lin Feng's Dominator's armor was even more powerful. While Lin Feng was walking through that area, Lin Feng suddenly realized something. Terrifying forces bombarded Lin Feng's body. However, none of them were able to cause any harm to Lin Feng's body, because all the attacks were neutralized by the Dominator's armor. Lin Feng was constantly approaching that huge palace. Seeing that he was only 30 to 40 meters away from that huge palace, Lin Feng suddenly felt a cold aura sweep through his body. That feeling was really terrible. Lin Feng couldn't help but be shocked. There must be a terrifying creature approaching him quickly. This place was really not peaceful. There was no way to travel through the void in this place. He could only rely on his physical speed. Therefore, Lin Feng quickly ran towards that huge palace. While running, he could clearly feel that there was a terrifying existence behind him that was rapidly approaching him. That terrifying existence should be the creature hiding in the dark. Lin Feng could even hear the sound of heavy breathing and the smell of blood in the air. The sound of heavy breathing and the strong stench of blood filled the air. They all came from that terrifying existence. Lin Feng increased his speed to the extreme. Whoosh! He took the lead and rushed into that huge palace. At this time, the void at the entrance of the palace distorted. In the distorted void, a black shadow flashed and disappeared. He didn't know what that black shadow was, and Lin Feng could finally let out a sigh of relief, because that terrifying existence seemed to be unable to enter the palace. Perhaps the palace was a great deterrent to it. Of course, there could be other reasons. Lin Feng observed this huge palace. This palace was clearly divided into many levels. Inside, there were densely packed palaces. Besides, the palace was extremely quiet. When Lin Feng was walking around, the palace was extremely quiet. Lin Feng's footsteps suddenly echoed in the palace. In such a huge palace, only Lin Feng's footsteps echoed in it. It was really strange. Suddenly, Lin Feng felt a chill down his spine. He felt as if something terrifying was staring at him from behind. Chapter 43:28. Lin Feng turned around and looked behind him, but there was nothing behind him. Was it my imagination? Lin Feng couldn't help but be puzzled. That feeling was so strong, but Lin Feng didn't find anything. But there seemed to be a voice in his heart telling Lin Feng that it wasn't his imagination. It's really strange. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown. Demon Lord, did you sense that strange aura just now? Asked Lin Feng telepathically. This time, the Demon Lord didn't answer Lin Feng, and Lin Feng quickly realized that something was wrong. He actually didn't sense the Demon Lord's aura. In other words, Lin Feng lost contact with the Demon Lord. Then, Lin Feng discovered that not only did he lose contact with the Demon Lord, he also lost contact with time and space, with Bibi, and even with his external incarnation. Anyone or anything that could be contacted by divine sense couldn't be contacted now. This was too strange. It made Lin Feng extremely surprised. What's going on? Lin Feng couldn't help but frown. The whole thing, it was full of strangeness. It made Lin Feng puzzled. He felt that perhaps it was because there was a special power of law inside this huge palace that changed everything. So, he couldn't get in touch with the Demon Lord, time and space, Bibi and the others, or even with his magic treasures. Lin Feng circulated his magic power. He found that his magic power could still be circulated. Although his magic power could still be circulated, it was difficult to use magic power to communicate with the treasures on his body. My magic power can't be replenished after it's consumed. There's no heaven and earth spirit energy here. Soon, Lin Feng discovered something even more terrifying. This place, there was no heaven and earth spirit energy. This was terrifying. There was no heaven and earth spirit energy. That means when Lin Feng's Fa Li was constantly depleting, his Fa Li could not be replenished. If Lin Feng could take out immortal stones or natural treasures from time and space and refine them, this way he could also replenish his magic power. But the key point was Lin Feng couldn't do that. A cultivator's body was like a machine that operated every day. Magic power, on the other hand, provided the energy consumed when the body was operating. Therefore, even if a cultivator did not fight with others, they would still consume a large amount of magic power every day. However, there was no way to replenish magic power here. In that case, when the magic power in his body was depleted, Lin Feng would become an ordinary person. If that really happened, that would be terrible. I have to find Yu Ji quickly and leave this damned place. If I don't leave this damned place by the time I run out of mana, I'm afraid I'll be trapped in this damned place to death. Lin Feng couldn't help but take a deep breath. The current situation was very dangerous. Therefore, he wondered if there were any powerful magical treasures or inheritances in this palace. Lin Feng was no longer concerned, even if there were great fortuitous encounters. Great fortuitous encounters. He would let others search for these fortuitous encounters and opportunities. Right now, Lin Feng only wanted to find Yu Ji as soon as possible and leave this place with her. Lin Feng walked through the huge palace. He discovered that many of the palaces were sealed by restrictions. If he wanted to enter those palaces, he would first need to open those restrictions. Lin Feng didn't break those restrictions. He didn't care if there was anything tempting inside. Right now, he couldn't replenish his own Fa Li. So Fa Li was extremely precious. He couldn't use Fa Li at will. And obviously, if he wanted to break those restrictions, he didn't know how much Fa Li would be consumed. Lin Feng wasn't stupid. Naturally, he wouldn't break those restrictions. Lin Feng searched for Yu Ji layer by layer. Lin Feng didn't need to explore those palaces that were densely covered in restrictions, because it was impossible for Yu Ji to enter a palace that hadn't even been destroyed. Some of the restrictions in the palaces were open, and he didn't know who opened them. Lin Feng mainly searched for the open palaces. Outside this huge palace, there were many skeletons. But in this huge palace, Lin Feng didn't find any skeletons. This made Lin Feng quite surprised. Lin Feng searched more than 300 floors of the palace. He couldn't find Yuji. Lin Feng didn't give up. He continued to head to the higher palaces to look for Yuji. Lin Feng started a carpet search of the palaces. However, there was still no gain. This made Lin Feng quite depressed. At this moment, Lin Feng had already arrived at the 870th floor. He estimated that he would finish exploring more than 100 floors. Lin Feng rested for a while and was about to continue exploring the higher palaces. Lin Feng once again felt the cold aura that he felt on the first floor of the palace. And this time, it was even more obvious than before. There's something unclean. Lin Feng frowned. He felt that there was definitely something unclean lurking in the dark. Maybe I can capture that guy and interrogate him. Maybe that guy knows where Yuji is. Lin Feng couldn't help but think of a possibility. Let the power of light descend into the world. Let the power of light dispel the evil. Lin Feng began to chant an incantation. The incantation he chanted this time was the Great Light Technique of the 3,000 Great Tao. The Great Light Technique. It was an extremely heaven-defying Great Tao. Rumor had it that the Great Light Technique could dispel all darkness and evil. Light was the nemesis of darkness and evil. When Lin Feng's Great Light Technique was cast, Lin Feng's body became dazzling. His body seemed to have turned into a ball of holy light. Endless holy light shone out from Lin Feng's body. The holy light spread out in all directions. The dazzling holy light enveloped every corner of the palace. Screech! A sharp and ear-piercing cry was heard. A black shadow appeared. After the black shadow was illuminated by the holy light, it was injured. As expected, there was a terrifying existence lurking in the dark. Lin Feng couldn't help but take a deep breath. Fortunately, his methods were extremely powerful. Otherwise, he would have died. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been easy to find this terrifying existence. Lin Feng guessed that this terrifying existence must be looking for an opportunity to attack him. It was just that he hadn't been able to find an opportunity. He felt that this terrifying existence was very likely a Yin god, but after carefully sensing it, it didn't seem to be a Yin god. "I'm going to kill you." The terrifying existence let out a sinister voice, and a large amount of black gas surged out of its body. The black gas actually blocked the holy light from harming its body. Then, the terrifying existence quickly pounced on Lin Feng. Chapter 43:29. This creature actually managed to block Lin Feng's Great Light Technique. It was truly terrifying. One had to know. Lin Feng's Great Light Technique was extremely effective against this creature. Of course, even though Lin Feng's Great Light Technique was suppressed by this creature, it was still very powerful. Lin Feng still had a calm expression on his face. "Your fate has long been determined. Your fate cannot be changed." Lin Feng stepped towards this creature. He didn't have that much time and energy to engage in a protracted battle with this creature. Lin Feng only wanted to defeat this creature as quickly as possible. The power of destiny condensed and coiled around Lin Feng's fingertips. Lin Feng lightly pointed at this creature. The power of destiny instantly flew out. Puchi! The power of destiny directly pierced through the layers of black fog and then pierced through this creature's body. The Great Fate Technique. It could be used in many ways. Moreover, the Great Fate Technique was incomparably powerful and terrifying. It could often play an extremely important role. Screech! After being hit by Lin Feng's Great Fate Technique, this creature let out a painful roar. This creature had suffered a calamity. The injuries he suffered were extremely serious. Lin Feng rushed forward and used the 8 God-forbidding seals, directly sealing this creature. This creature wasn't made of flesh and blood. Instead, it was a body formed from a combination of darkness-type energy and baleful aura. I'm looking for a woman who came here not long ago. Do you know where that woman is? Lin Feng looked at the suppressed creature and asked, "Of course I know. I can take you to find the woman you're looking for. But you can't kill me," the creature said. "If you don't play any tricks, I can spare your life." Lin Feng said, "Follow me," the creature said. It led the way in front. Right now, its magic power was sealed, so it couldn't unleash much of its powerful combat strength. However, it could still move. Under this creature's lead, they arrived at the 999th palace. The number 999 made Lin Feng frown slightly. Deep inside the palace, there was a huge energy barrier. That energy barrier seemed to be formed by seals. "Is she in there?" Lin Feng looked at this creature and asked, "That's right. You can enter and search for her. But before you enter, you should keep your promise and let me go." The creature said. Lin Feng removed the seal on this creature. He walked towards the energy barrier, but right at that moment, all of a sudden, a chilly wind blew through the entire hall. A sinister laughter rang out. Black chi. It was densely packed. "I wonder how many there are." Lin Feng's expression. "Brat, let's see how you'll die now," said the terrifying spirit who had lured Lin Feng here. It looked at Lin Feng as if it was looking at a dead man. In its opinion, Lin Feng was dead for sure. "Kikik, boy, you will become our food," the group of terrifying creatures laughed sinisterly. Then, the densely packed creatures rushed towards Lin Feng. "Namo Amit Ba, Buddha is limitless." Suddenly, Lin Feng put his palms together and chanted an incantation. Behind Lin Feng, 3,000 ancient Buddhas appeared. Lin Feng used one of the 3,000 great Daos, the great ancient Buddha technique. This divine ability was extremely effective in restraining evil fiends. The 3,000 ancient Buddhas let out a vast Buddhist sound. They chanted the ancient Buddhist scriptures together. Endless Buddhist light surged out, protecting Lin Feng. When the Buddhist light shone on these terrifying creatures, their bodies began to burn. "The divine ability of Buddhism can't kill us," the group of terrifying creatures roared. Large amounts of black gas surged out of their bodies. The black gas was extinguishing their burning bodies. When Lin Feng saw that, he couldn't help but look even more solemn. These terrifying creatures had terrifying means. It seemed that the divine ability of Buddhism couldn't kill them. If that was the case, it would be troublesome. Soon, the burning bodies of these terrifying creatures were extinguished. Large amounts of black gas surged out of their bodies to resist the attack of the Buddhist light. These terrifying creatures erupted with even more power and rushed towards Lin Feng. They wouldn't kill Lin Feng. They wouldn't give up. Lin Feng also knew that the situation had reached a point where he couldn't afford any delay. The situation was very unfavorable for him. Lin Feng could die at any time. However, at this moment, Yuji's voice sounded from the energy barrier in the depths. "Lin Feng, come here quickly. Try to charge into the energy barrier." After hearing Yuji's voice, Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. He activated the divine ability, Burning Wrath of the Heavens. 6 skyfires merged into a huge ball of flame. Lin Feng then summoned the ball of flame. A loud rumble sounded. The huge ball of flame exploded. Destructive energy surged in all directions. Those terrifying creatures were blasted away one after another. Lin Feng seized the opportunity and rushed towards the energy barrier. However, when Lin Feng approached the barrier, the void around the barrier began to overlap. It seemed that the barrier didn't want Lin Feng to enter. "Stop struggling, kid. If you keep struggling, you'll die." A group of terrifying creatures pounced on Lin Feng. Lin Feng shuttled through the folded space, but he discovered that it was useless to only know the Tao of space. Wanting to pass through the folded space was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. The power of destiny allows me to pass through the folded space. In this world, there is no power that can stop me. Lin Feng couldn't help but start chanting an incantation. He stretched out his hand and pointed at the folded space in front of him. A large amount of the power of destiny poured into the folded space. Suddenly, a miraculous scene appeared. The folded space stopped folding. Lin Feng passed through the folded space and arrived in front of the energy barrier. He instantly charged into the energy barrier. The densely packed, terrifying creatures also wanted to charge into the energy barrier. However, when Lin Feng entered the world behind the energy barrier, the folded space started folding again. The terrifying creatures that wanted to charge into the energy barrier were all blocked outside by the folded space. The terrifying creatures couldn't help but let out furious roars. Chapter 43:30. After entering, Lin Feng discovered that there was a hall inside the energy barrier. At this moment, she was standing not far away, looking at him. "I've finally found you." Lin Feng was very happy to see Yu sighed and said, "You shouldn't have come to find me. This place is too dangerous, and cultivators can't absorb energy. After the battle just now, you should have used up most of your magic power, right? My situation is the same. My magic power is severely depleted, and the creatures outside are so terrifying. I'm afraid we're going to be trapped in this place." Lin Feng said, "Don't be pessimistic. As the saying goes, the heavens will always leave a way out. We'll find a way." Hearing this, Yu could only nod. Lin Feng and Yu entered the hall together. Lin Feng saw a skeleton. That skeleton seemed to be the skeleton of a woman. The reason why he made such a judgment was because the skeleton was extremely slender. The man's skeleton was relatively thick. Was the energy barrier outside created by this senior? Lin Feng said. It should be. Back then, she should have been extremely powerful. But what a pity. She also fell in this place. Yu said with a frown. Did she leave anything behind? Lin Feng asked. Yu said, "There is a storage ring, but unfortunately I can't open it right now." As Yu spoke, she took out a storage ring and handed it over to Lin Feng. Lin Feng observed the storage ring. The texture was not ordinary. He wondered if it had been eroded by the power of time. Lin Feng returned the storage ring to Yu. He said, "Look for something like a teleportation array. If you can find it, you might be able to teleport out." I searched carefully and found a teleportation array. However, that teleportation array was only half-carved and could not be completed. Yu said, "Where is it?" Lin Feng's eyes lit up. "Follow me," Yu said. The palace was very large and was divided into 2 layers. The teleportation array was located in the inner hall. Lin Feng followed Yu to the teleportation array. What a complicated teleportation array. Lin Feng looked at the teleportation array in shock. It was too complicated. Even he was greatly shocked. The person who set up the teleportation array was too extraordinary. This enormous palace is enveloped by the power of the laws. Therefore, if you want to pass through it, you'll need an extremely exquisite and powerful teleportation formation. I don't know if this teleportation array was created by the senior outside. If it was, my guess is that when that senior was setting up the teleportation array, His magic power was exhausted before he could complete it. That's why that senior died, Yuji said. Lin Feng nodded, then smiled bitterly, and said, "It's very likely that they were starved to death." Yuji also thought of this possibility, so she couldn't help but smile bitterly. Powerful cultivators were starved to death. It sounded really inconceivable. This was because most of the time, cultivators did not need to eat to live for a very long time. This is because cultivators could continuously devour the energy of heaven and earth to provide the energy their bodies needed. Sometimes cultivators would also eat. Most of them would only choose to eat when they needed to quickly replenish their strength after a great battle. Otherwise, very few cultivators would eat. Not all cultivators were like Lin Feng. When they had nothing to do, they liked to enjoy all kinds of delicacies. This teleportation array is too complicated. If we were outside, give me some time, and I might be able to research it. I might even be able to try to make up for the missing array patterns on this teleportation array. However, it's impossible to achieve this here. My magic power has been used up too much in the previous battle. Researching and setting up arrays will consume a lot of magic power. Obviously, my magic power is far from being able to meet these needs. Lin Feng said with a slightly ugly expression. Let's think of another way, Yuji said. Time passed day by day. Lin Feng and Yuji's magic power was consumed day by day. The situation was getting worse and worse for the two of them. Lin Feng and Yuji were very clear about this. They would try to sense the energy of the outside world every day. But every time, they would fail. Traces of despair could be felt. It permeated the hearts of Lin Feng and Yuji. In fact, the two of them were relatively optimistic people. It was just that the current situation, no matter how optimistic his personality was, he was afraid. At this moment, he couldn't be optimistic anymore. However, Lin Feng still didn't give up. He was still sensing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the outside world. On this day, Lin Feng suddenly felt a cool feeling coming from his dantian. Following that, Lin Feng discovered that traces of spiritual energy of heaven and earth had crossed time and space and arrived in the main hall. Then, they were absorbed by him. Oh my God, what's going on? Lin Feng's face revealed an extremely shocked expression. His body was actually absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth from the outside world. It was truly unbelievable. Suddenly, Lin Feng thought of a treasure in his dantian. That was the World Tree Sapling, also known as the Jianmu Tree Sapling. The World Tree was one of the 3 great divine trees between heaven and earth, and the World Tree could absorb all kinds of energy between heaven and earth. However, Lin Feng had already lost contact with the World Tree Sapling, and in the main hall there was also no energy for the World Tree Sapling to absorb. But now, the World Tree Sapling seemed to be absorbing energy from the outside world. Other than this possibility, Lin Feng really couldn't think of any other possibility. As time passed, the World Tree Sapling absorbed more and more energy. Originally, Lin Feng was already extremely hungry because his magic power was exhausted and he couldn't replenish his body. In addition, he couldn't eat for a long time. But now, the energy was absorbed by the World Tree Sapling, and then the World Tree Sapling transferred the energy to Lin Feng. After Lin Feng's body was replenished with energy, he no longer felt hungry. Lin Feng was already quite weak, but now, Lin Feng became stronger. This feeling was simply too good. The World Tree Sapling was simply too heaven-defying. It allowed Lin Feng to come back from death's door. Moreover, Lin Feng could clearly feel that the World Tree Sapling was absorbing more and more energy at a faster and faster rate. After getting used to it for a while, the terrifying power of the World Tree Sapling was completely unleashed. In just a day's time, Lin Feng had recovered to his peak state. Those who eat qi, gods don't die. This sentence really contains a great principle. Chapter 43:31. Now, Lin Feng had completely recovered. So, next, let Yu Ji recover. When Yu Ji recovered, the two of them would join forces and kill in all directions. They would definitely be able to break out of the encirclement. Right now, Yu Ji was still sensing the energy in the outside world, but it seemed like there was nothing to be gained. Yu Ji, wake up! Lin Feng patted Yu Ji. Yu Ji opened her eyes. Because her magic power was almost exhausted, coupled with hunger, she looked a little listless. What's wrong? Yu Ji asked. Look at what this is. Lin Feng flicked his finger, and a ball of magic power flew out. That ball of magic power was wrapped in pure heaven and earth energy. Yu Ji's beautiful eyes instantly widened. She asked in surprise, You found a way to devour heaven and earth energy? Lin Feng said with a smile, Yes, in my early years, I cultivated a sapling of the builder tree. After entering here, I lost contact with the sapling of the builder tree. Originally, I thought that the sapling of the builder tree was unable to absorb the energy of heaven and earth from the outside world. Who would have thought that the sapling of the builder tree could actually absorb the energy of the outside world? Now, I will inject this energy into your body. This way, you can also quickly recover your cultivation. Hearing this, Yu Ji said in surprise, That's great. It seems that there is always a way. I'll offend you later. Lin Feng said. Yu Ji nodded with a red face. Yu Ji was like a fairy who had walked out of a painting. However, Lin Feng was too familiar with Yu Ji. It was not easy to make a move on Yu Ji. In fact, Lin Feng was also quite interested in Yu Ji, such a peerless beauty. Who wouldn't like her? Of course, this was all in the future. At this time, Lin Feng's right hand was placed on Yu Ji's lower abdomen. Yu Ji's pretty face became redder and redder. She didn't dare to look at Lin Feng. Lin Feng didn't notice Yu Ji's expression, because this was a critical moment. Therefore, Lin Feng's mind was very focused. Powerful energy. It poured into Yu Ji's dantian. Yu Ji began to quickly absorb the energy. He continued to absorb and refine the energy flowing into his dantian. Yu Ji's cultivation. It was also improving rapidly. Lin Feng smiled. When Yu Ji recovered, that was when they left the hall. After spending nearly 2 days, Yu Ji finally recovered completely. Let's work together and break out. Lin Feng stood up and said, All right. Yu Ji nodded. There must be a lot of secrets hidden in the hall, but the hall was occupied by a group of terrifying beings. Those secrets were destined not to be explored. Of course, being able to get out of here alive was already pretty good. Whoosh whoosh, Lin Feng and Yu Ji rushed out of the energy barrier. They're out. They're out. The two of them are out. Attack together. Kill them and eat their flesh. A terrifying creature shouted loudly. Lin Feng discovered that this terrifying creature was actually the creature he had suppressed earlier. The surrounding densely packed terrifying creatures pounced towards Lin Feng and Yu Ji. Lin Feng snapped his fingers. Bang! Accompanied by the violent explosion. The body of the terrifying creature that Lin Feng had suppressed earlier exploded. Lin Feng had indeed let that guy go before, but before Lin Feng let him go, he had set up a restriction in his body. That guy didn't know that Lin Feng had set up a restriction in his body. If that guy was honest, Lin Feng naturally wouldn't take his life. But since that guy was courting death, Lin Feng didn't mind helping him. Just now, Lin Feng had snapped his fingers to activate the restriction in that guy's body. The restriction in his body instantly exploded. That guy was killed on the spot. In the end, he died a miserable death. That guy's cultivation was extremely strong, So when his body exploded, it produced an extremely powerful energy shockwave. The world-destroying energy enveloped all the terrifying creatures in the surroundings. Many terrifying creatures were blasted away. Then their bodies were blown to pieces. However, those terrifying creatures had extremely powerful vitality. Even though their bodies were blown to pieces, they were still alive and were constantly reassembling their bodies. Such powerful vitality. Lin Feng couldn't help but be shocked. Lin Feng found it inconceivable. But those guys were truly too terrifying. Then let the power of destiny descend. Let the power of destiny take us away from this place of evil. As Lin Feng's voice faded, the river of destiny condensed. Lin Feng and Yuji entered the river of destiny together. At this moment, the river of destiny quickly rushed outside. Those terrifying creatures pounced on Lin Feng and Yuji in the river of destiny. Under Lin Feng's control, huge waves in the river of destiny surged to the sky, directly sweeping away one terrifying creature after another. However, there were still many creatures who entered the river of destiny, and then pounced on Lin Feng and Yuji. Lin Feng and Yuji had to rush out in one go. If they couldn't rush out in one go, once this momentum dissipated, when the time came, if he wanted to rush out, it would become extremely difficult. Petrification of all life. At this moment, Yuji used a terrifying divine ability. When she used this divine ability, streams of strange and unfathomable energy enveloped those terrifying creatures. Those terrifying creatures' bodies were instantly petrified, and then they fell from the river of destiny. This divine ability was truly terrifying. However, Yuji couldn't petrify those terrifying creatures for long. Those terrifying creatures could only be petrified for a few breaths of time. It was incomparably short, and they would recover to their original state. But even though the time was short, for Lin Feng, it was enough. Lin Feng grabbed Yuji's jade-like hand with one hand, then stepped on the world and traveled through the river of destiny. Soon, he got rid of the densely packed, terrifying creatures and rushed to the next level. Those terrifying creatures were powerful and had incomparably tenacious vitality. However, their speed was still a bit slower than Lin Feng's. The densely packed, terrifying creatures chased after Lin Feng and Yuji from the 999th level of the palace. They chased to the lowest level of the palace, but still couldn't catch up to Lin Feng and Yuji. Lin Feng and Yuji rushed out. A layer of silver armor appeared on the surface of Yuji's body to protect her body. It seemed to be an incredible, supreme treasure. Lin Feng took out the ruler's armor. Chapter 43:32. But even so, Lin Feng did not dare to be careless. Because Lin Feng knew there was still a terrifying existence hiding outside. Previously, he had been chased by that terrifying existence. Those terrifying creatures inside were unable to come out. As for the terrifying creature outside, it had no way of entering it. Perhaps it was restricted by the laws. Lin Feng felt, whether it was the terrifying existence outside or the group of terrifying existences inside, they were actually the guardians of this huge hall. This feeling was very strong. Lin Feng felt that his intuition and judgment should be correct. As for the origin of this huge hall, that was unknown. That terrifying existence is approaching us. Yuji's expression became solemn. Before Yuji entered the huge hall, she had also been attacked by that terrifying existence. Therefore, Yuji knew that there was an extremely terrifying existence lurking in the dark. "Let's speed up," Lin Feng said. He grabbed Yuji's jade-like hand and pushed his speed to the limit. However, Lin Feng discovered that the terrifying existence seemed to be blocking the way out, and that terrifying existence seemed to be brewing an extremely terrifying attack, preparing to attack Lin Feng and Yu Ji. It seemed that this fellow did not intend to let Lin Feng and Yu Ji off. Lin Feng began to try to summon the shadow of the door of eternal life. The shadow of the door of eternal life could even be said to be Lin Feng's most terrifying method at the current stage. Once it exploded, its power was extremely strong. It was unimaginable. Summoning the shadow of the door of eternal life consumed a lot of one's mana. With Lin Feng's current cultivation, summoning the shadow of the door of eternal life consumed more than half of his mana. Therefore, Lin Feng would not summon the shadow of the door of eternal life to fight against his enemies. But now, that unknown terrifying creature was right in front of him, and it blocked his and Yu Ji's path. Therefore, Lin Feng no longer had any scruples. He directly summoned the shadow of the door of eternal life. A loud rumbling sound was heard as the shadow of the door of everlasting life descended from the sky, suppressing that unknown terrifying being. Ka-cha! Crack! Even the void was shattered. The power of the illusory door of everlasting life was so strong that it could shake one's heart. After summoning the shadow of the door of everlasting life, a sense of weakness immediately engulfed his entire body. In the previous continuous battles, Lin Feng's mana consumption was quite serious. Now, he had summoned the phantom of the door of everlasting life. The magic power in his body was almost depleted, although the cost of summoning the door of everlasting life was enormous. It was clearly worth it. When the shadow of the door of everlasting life came crashing down, the unknown creature hiding in the dark let out an angry roar. It swung its giant claws at the door of everlasting life that was descending from the sky. At this time, Lin Feng grabbed Yu Ji and quickly rushed outside. In the end, Lin Feng seized this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and rushed out of the golden light barrier with Yu Ji. Huff, 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 Lin Feng panted heavily. The entire process seemed simple, but it was actually filled with countless dangers. One wrong step, and the whole game would be lost. Fortunately, he and Yu Ji made it out successfully. Lin Feng waved his hand, and the ancient ship Xianyuan flew out. He and Yu Ji boarded the ancient ship. Lin Feng only wanted to have a good rest now. He was too tired. It would not be too late to go back after he had rested. Lin Feng slept for a day and a night, and his spirit finally recovered. He walked out of his room. Yu Ji also happened to walk out of her room. When she saw Lin Feng, she smiled and asked, "How was your rest?" "Not bad. How was your rest?" Lin Feng asked. "I rested well, too," Yu Ji said with a smile. The two of them went to the cabin. Yu Ji took out the mysterious expert storage ring and said, "I wonder what's in this storage ring. Let's use our divine sense to take a look," Lin Feng said. Yu Ji nodded and used her divine sense to enter the storage ring. Then she said in surprise, "This storage ring actually has its own space, forming a world of mountains and rivers. We can enter the ring." "Oh, it's so magical. Let's go in and take a look," Lin Feng said. Next, he and Yu Ji entered the space inside the storage ring. In the space formed by the storage ring, there were mountains scattered around. These mountains were not ordinary mountains. They were actually immortal veins. Immortal veins often nurtured immortal stones. There were dozens of immortal veins here. It was really shocking. In addition, there were also piles of immortal stones, all kinds of forging materials, and so on. "You can choose what you need first," Yu Ji said. Yu Ji said. Lin Feng naturally did not stand on ceremony with Yu Ji. With their relationship, there was no need to stand on ceremony with each other. Lin Feng moved 20 immortal veins into the space of time. These immortal veins were of a higher grade. Because of the immortal stones they nurtured, they could emit immortal chi. The effect of immortal energy on changing a world was simply too great. Now, there were some quasi-immortal veins in the space of time, but there were no real immortal veins. As a result, Lin Feng moved the immortal veins into the space of time. It was extremely important to the space of time. Other than that, Lin Feng also collected some immortal iron divine stone that he needed, various precious insect materials, and so on. Buzz, buzz, buzz. It was at this moment that something shocking happened. Lin Feng discovered that many runes had actually surged out of his broken heaven-shaking steel, and those runes were emitting violent fluctuations. This caused Lin Feng to be shocked. The broken heaven-shaking steel was actually emitting fluctuations at this time. What did this mean? Could it be that there was a broken heaven-shaking steel here? Thinking of this, Lin Feng could not help but be pleasantly surprised. At this moment, Lin Feng's other heaven-shaking steel also emitted violent fluctuations. Two heaven-shaking steels, both of them emitted such fluctuations. Lin Feng was now certain that there must be a heaven-shaking steel here. Lin Feng began to search. There were all kinds of things piled up like mountains here. Lin Feng stopped on top of a pile of treasures. There were all kinds of immortal stones, all kinds of rare treasures, all kinds of magic treasures, and so on. Lin Feng rummaged through the mountain of treasures. Finally, he found a damaged, heaven-shaking stone tablet among these treasures. Ha 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 ha! Found it! Found it! I finally found it! Lin Feng could not help but laugh. Lin Feng wanted to quickly repair the broken heaven-shaking steel. This was already the third broken heaven-shaking steel. Chapter 43:33. The sky-shaking stone tablet was too mysterious. Its importance to a cultivator was unimaginable. If one could comprehend the secrets of the sky-shaking stone tablet, it would definitely be of great help to a cultivator. Not to mention the various powerful offensive divine abilities, just the secret of eternal life was enough to drive one crazy. Of course, it was hard to say whether one could comprehend these secrets. It would depend on one's luck and comprehension. Apart from its many secrets, the sky-shaking stone tablet itself was also an extremely powerful Dharma treasure. Lin Feng was so weak back then, but he had carried the sky-shaking stone tablet and killed dozens of foreign gods. From this, one could see how powerful the sky-shaking stone tablet was. However, with Lin Feng's current cultivation base, it was still difficult for him to truly control the sky-shaking stone tablet. Perhaps when he reached the immortal realm, he would be able to release the power of the sky-shaking stone tablet. At that time, he would definitely be able to kill anyone who stood in his way. The third incomplete sky-shaking stone tablet had merged with the other two incomplete sky-shaking stone tablets. Of course, at this stage, the merging was not complete. Although it could be merged, it could also be separated. When Lin Feng had gathered all the incomplete sky-shaking stone tablets, the merging at that time would be considered a true merging. Lin Feng kept the sky-shaking stone tablet. The harvest this time was really too great, not to mention the immortal meridians, various insect materials, immortal iron, divine stones, and so on. Just this incomplete sky-shaking stone tablet alone was already an extremely heaven-defying harvest. There were still many treasures in the storage ring. Lin Feng only chose what he needed. As for the rest of the treasures, Lin Feng left them to Yu Ji. After the two of them flew out of the storage ring's internal space, Yu Ji put away the storage ring. Lin Feng said, "I wonder if that fella Di Jue is still out there? If that fella is out there, we can join forces to kill him." Di Jue is now at the itinerant immortal realm. He's too powerful. Even if the two of us join forces, it won't be easy to kill him. Even if we can kill him, we'll have to pay a heavy price. Eugene knew Jue better. She could not help but frown as she spoke. Yuji's worries were very reasonable. Previously, Lin Feng and Jue had fought briefly. Lin Feng's great destiny skill was so terrifying. However, it still could not suppress Jue. This was enough to explain many problems. Lin Feng said, "It's not just the two of us. There are a lot of helpers." "What other helpers do you have?" Yuji asked doubtfully. Lin Feng said, "I cultivated 2 insect swarms, an emperor archaic, a primordial ancestral insect, and 2 spirit beasts, Bibi and Blackie. In addition, there is another person who I'm sure you know. Although her cultivation is not at our level, she can still play a role in this battle. Even if she did not make a move, as long as she appeared before Diju, she would be able to disturb his mind. Diju, you won't be able to focus on fighting us." "Oh, there was such a person. Who is this person?" Yuji asked, puzzled. Lin Feng smiled and summoned Nangong, Lingwei from the time and space. "Senior Sister Shangguan." Nangong Lingwei bowed at Yuji after she came out. They knew each other. It was just that they did not have much interaction before this. However, Yuji still had some understanding of Nangong Lingwei. She knew that Nangong Lingwei was someone that Jue had focused on cultivating. Moreover, Nangong Lingwei was the leader of the beauties in Jue's harem. She was highly regarded by Jue. Moreover, Yuji also knew that other than Nangong Lingwei's beautiful appearance and powerful innate talent, there was another important reason why Diju valued Nangong Lingwei so highly. It was because Nangong Lingwei had the heavenly Yin body, a supreme-grade cultivation furnace. Now, it seemed like Lin Feng had used some unknown method to make Nangong Lingwei surrender. With Jue's arrogant character, it was naturally impossible for him to accept such a thing. Therefore, Lin Feng said that even if this person did not make a move, as long as she appeared, she would be able to disturb Jue's mind. Lin Feng's words made sense. "You may dispense with the formalities," Yuji said. Lin Feng looked at Yuji and asked, "How confident do you think we are in killing Jue if we join forces now?" 60%. Yuji said. Lin Feng said, 60% is enough for us to make a move. Then Lin Feng took out the heart compass and said to it, "Great Divine Martin, please show us the way out." Cough, cough. "Of course, that's not a problem. However, you know the rules." The Great Divine Martin appeared again. "What do you know? As the saying goes, there's a beginning and an end. Only by combining the entry and exit will it be complete. Therefore, I can only collect the reward once." Lin Feng said. Upon hearing Lin Feng's words, the Great Divine Martin could not help but roll its eyes. It said helplessly, "All right, wait here. I'll communicate with the heart compass." After waiting for a while, the Great Divine Martin said, "Since heaven and earth also pay attention to the cycle of cause and effect, let's do as you said and pay attention to a beginning and an end." As soon as it finished speaking, the Great Divine Martin concealed its figure, and the heart compass began to spin rapidly. Finally, the heart compass found the way out. The ancient starship, Xianyuan, quickly flew in the direction indicated by the heart compass. It was much faster when they left compared to when they entered. When they left, it only took them half a month to leave. They had already arrived at the exit of the shattered void. The storm there was extremely violent, and the space-time energy was wreaking havoc. The ancient starship, Xianyuan, raised its speed to the limit and charged into the storm. Swoosh! In 15 minutes, the ancient starship, Xianyuan, turned into a stream of light and charged out of the shattered void. In the outside world, Di Jue sat on the white bone throne with a cold gaze in his eyes. Lin Feng, Yuji, I knew that the two of you wouldn't die so easily. It's just as I expected, Di Jue said coldly. His voice did not contain a trace of emotion. It was like the voice of the Grim Reaper. Lin Feng, Yuji, and Nangong Lingwei flew out of the ancient starship together. Then Lin Feng put the ancient starship away. Yuji looked at Di Jue and said, Di Jue, you're really persistent. You've been waiting for so long, but you still haven't left. Di Ju said coldly, Shangguan Bingyun, you used the news about the Empyrean Saint Book to lure me out. I know that you're not lying. You must know about the Empyrean Saint Book. The Crown Prince must get the Empyrean Saint Book. And Lin Feng, you know the Great Fate technique. I must get this divine ability as well, apart from the Great Fate technique. I'm guessing that the Devil Master's token is also in your hands, right? That Devil Master's token belongs to me as well. As for Nangong Lingwei, you little b****, TCH. How dare you betray me? You deserve to die 1,000 times. All three of you deserve to die. How can I leave this place when I haven't gotten what I want? Once I get my hands on those things, all of you will die at my hands. Chapter 43-34. Previously, Di Jue did not manage to find the Devil Master token on Lin Yunsong. However, Lin Yunsong was stubborn. Although he was tortured, he did not reveal the whereabouts of the Devil Master token. Ever since he found out that it was Lin Feng who had rescued Lin Yunsong, Di Jue had guessed that the Devil Master token might be with Lin Feng. This was also the reason why he had sent Nangong Lingwei to capture Lin Feng instead of Lin Yunsong. Di Jue was extremely confident in himself. He believed in the accuracy of his judgment. Of course. So what if Di Jue had guessed it? Lin Feng did not care at all. Today, he would take Di Jue's life. Di Jue, you're about to die, but you still dare to boast shamelessly. What a joke. I'll see how you're going to die later. Lin Feng sneered. Then he waved his hand. At once, the swarm of primitive fiend refining bugs and celestial devouring bugs flew out rapidly. The two swarm of bugs formed a black mass that seemed boundless. At a glance, one could not even see the end of it. The two swarm of bugs were extremely terrifying. All of them flew toward Di Jue. At the same time, Lin Feng summoned the Emperor Archaic and the primordial ancestor worm. The Emperor Archaic flapped his wings and launched an attack at Di Jue. The primordial ancestor worm, on the other hand, spat out densely packed threads that wrapped around Di Jue. Bibi flew out as well and unleashed her space-time confinement energy. Blackie, on the other hand, unleashed its death energy to take away Di Jue's life. Do it! Lin Feng shouted in his deep voice. Subsequently, Lin Feng, Yuji, and Nangong Lingwei made their moves. Lin Feng took out powerful Dharma treasures one after another and charged toward Di Jue. Yuji also took out a supreme treasure. It was an ancient bronze book. No one knew what kind of treasure that ancient bronze book was. Rays of bronze light shot out from the ancient bronze book. At the same time, the streaks of bronze light shot toward Di Jue. Nangong Lingwei took out a mysterious fiend stone. That demon stone was obviously an extraordinary treasure. After it was taken out, it vibrated with an extremely terrifying energy fluctuation. The Devil Stone continued to expand as it pressed down on Di Jue. It's useless. No matter how many magical treasures you have, no matter how many people you have, in front of absolute power, it's completely useless. Faced with so many attacks, Di Jue merely sneered. Heaven, earth, silent, destruction. Di Jue's cold voice suddenly reverberated in the heavens and the earth. He had performed an unparalleled supreme divine ability. heaven and earth were destroyed. Everything between heaven and earth. They would all be annihilated in silence. This was definitely a divine ability that would shock people to the point of disbelief. This divine ability was too powerful. When this divine ability was unleashed, a terrifying thing happened. In the void, the densely packed swarm of insects seemed to have lost their lives as they floated down from midair. Then, one by one, the Dharma treasures that were flying toward Di also fell from the void one after another. Then, the primordial ancestor worm, Nangong Lingwei, Emperor Archaic, Blackie, Bibi, Yuji, and even Lin Feng, their bodies fell to the ground uncontrollably. Lin Feng felt as though the dermic powers in his body had disappeared in an instant. This was the effect of the silent destruction energy. The silent destruction energy meant that it would disappear in an instant. Although Di Jue's divine ability did not annihilate Lin Feng and the rest, however, it had annihilated Lin Feng and the rest's dermic powers. Therefore, regardless of whether it was the swarm of insects, the magical treasures, or Lin Feng and the rest, they fell to the ground uncontrollably. I'll perform the soul-searching technique on you first before killing you. Di Jue looked at Lin Feng indifferently. Naturally, he knew the backbone of these people was Lin Feng. If he could kill Lin Feng, then the rest would be utterly defeated. Of course, Di Jue would not kill Lin Feng immediately. He needed to obtain the news about the great destiny skill and the Devil Master token first. Therefore, he wanted to perform the soul-searching technique on Lin Feng first. After obtaining the news about the great destiny skill and the Devil Master token, he would then kill Lin Feng. This fellow's wishful thinking was quite good. At this moment, Lin Feng was mobilizing the dermic powers that had just been produced in his body to perform the great destiny skill. The dermic powers were transformed from the spirit energy of heaven and earth that the sapling of the builder tree had devoured after Lin Feng's dermic powers were depleted. Great destiny energy. Restore the dermic powers of my companions and me. Don't let this evil creature's trick succeed. The dermic powers in Lin Feng's body were just enough for him to perform the great destiny skill. As soon as the great destiny skill was performed, the fates of Lin Feng and the rest were immediately changed. Originally, Lin Feng and the rest's dermic powers had disappeared completely due to Di Jue's heaven and earth destruction. However, their dermic powers had been completely restored at this moment. Even their dermic treasures had been completely restored. It's too late. Di Jue's expression was indifferent. Although Lin Feng and the rest had been restored to their original state, Di Jue had already arrived next to Lin Feng at this moment. He opened his huge hand and slapped it directly at Lin Feng. Powerful dermic powers surged out and suppressed Lin Feng. In Di Jue's opinion, so what if Lin Feng's dermic powers had been restored? At this moment, it was already too late for Lin Feng to defend against his attack. Di Jue's attack was indeed very terrifying. Even if Lin Feng could defend against Di Jue's first attack, he would not be able to defend against it. He would not be able to defend against Di Jue's second attack. Di Jue would definitely continue to put pressure on Lin Feng. He would not let Lin Feng have the chance to defend himself. Lin Feng was very clear about this point. Therefore, Lin Feng did not plan to fight Di Jue head-on. Before Di Jue's attack arrived, Lin Feng performed the heaven patching technique. He wanted to borrow another chance from the heavens. The heaven patching technique was an incomparably heaven-defying divine ability. When Lin Feng performed the heaven patching technique, he instantly disappeared. He instantly disappeared from where he was and dodged Di Jue's terrifying attack. Di Jue's attack landed in the void. It did not cause any harm to Lin Feng. Lin Feng, on the other hand, appeared a few hundred meters away. Damn it! Di Jue's expression turned grave. If he had been able to suppress Lin Feng earlier, then this battle would most likely have ended very soon. However, now that he was unable to suppress Lin Feng, there would definitely be another wave in this battle. Of course, Di Jue was still extremely confident in himself. Di Jue's hands were constantly changing seals. He seemed to be performing an extremely heaven-defying divine ability. The fluctuation of aura that was emitted from this divine ability was even more terrifying than the fluctuation of the heaven and earth obliteration. However, before this divine ability could be completed, Di Jue suddenly suffered a calamity. Puff! Di Jue's chest was penetrated by an invisible force. Blood immediately gushed out as Di Jue's body flew out. Chapter 43:35. Earlier, Lin Feng had performed the Great Curse spell to deal with Di Jue. The Great Curse spell was strange and terrifying. However, the success rate of it was not high. Moreover, the more powerful the opponent was, the lower the success rate of the Great Curse spell. Lin Feng did not expect that he would be able to injure Di Jue with the Great Curse spell. Di Jue's chest was penetrated. Such an injury was not light at all. Di Jue did not possess the undying bloodline. His injury could not be healed quickly. Ha 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 ha. Di Jue, aren't you arrogant? What about now? Let's see who will live and who will die later. What are you waiting for? Let's kill Di Jue. Lin Feng shouted loudly. Boom, boom, boom. One after another, powerful Dharma treasures emitted a destructive force that charged toward Di Jue. The primitive fiend-refining insects and the celestial devouring insects also flew toward Di Jue. Bibi, Blackie, Emperor Archaic, and the primordial ancestor insect also unleashed their power and launched a fierce attack on Di Jue. The bronze book that Yuji had unleashed its mighty power. One after another, riders clad in bronze armor and wielding bronze swords rushed out of the book, one after another. Those riders charged toward Di Jue one after another. Upon seeing that, Lin Feng could not help but be shocked. What kind of treasure was that ancient bronze book? It was actually so extraordinary. Endless runes surged out of the Devil's Stone that Nangong Lingwei had performed. Those runes were mysterious and unfathomable. They contained an unimaginably terrifying power. The densely packed runes flew toward Di Jue as though they wanted to brand themselves on his body. Di Jue was injured by Lin Feng's Great Curse spell. It was the best opportunity to deal with Di Jue. As the saying went, kill when you are sick. If he did not kill Di Jue now, when would he be able to? Di Jue's expression turned extremely grave. He had never thought that he would be injured. On top of that, he was injured without any warning. This made Di Jue extremely furious, because Di Jue had even forgotten when was the last time he was injured. The main reason was that Di Jue was just too powerful. He had never been defeated in his entire life. Therefore, he was basically uninjured. Now that he was silently injured by Lin Feng, it was an extremely serious blow to Di Jue's confidence. At this moment, Di Jue wished he could cut Lin Feng into 1,000 pieces. Of course, Di Jue also knew that due to his sudden injury, his current situation was different from before. As much as he didn't want to admit it, however, Di Jue had no choice but to face the truth. After he was injured, his own combat strength, compared to before, there was a huge drop. Faced with the attacks from the crowd, Di Jue did not dare to be careless. He immediately took out a shield. He gripped the shield with his left hand. That shield was called the Five Saints Shield. It was forged with the sacred bones of the azure dragon, vermilion bird, white tiger, black tortoise, and brilliant snake. Its defensive power was extremely strong. However, in the face of so many attacks, Dijue was still sent flying. The powerful vibrations caused Dijue to involuntarily spit out a mouthful of blood. Ah! Dijue roared furiously. He was at a disadvantage again and again. Dijue could not accept this at all. For someone as high and mighty as Dijue, he had never been at a disadvantage before. Therefore, once he was at a disadvantage, his state of mind would often be unbalanced. In fact, this was normal. He was a genius after all. He had never been defeated before. However, he was injured again and again. In his heart, naturally, he could not accept this. However, Dijue's cultivation base was there for all to see. Even if his state of mind was unbalanced, he was still extremely powerful. I'm going to kill all of you. I'm going to kill all of you. I'm going to kill all of you. Dijue's cold voice resounded in heaven and earth again and again. His voice, it was bone-chilling. Bone-chilling killing, intent, Dijue. At this moment, he did not think about anything else. He just wanted to kill Lin Feng and the others as soon as possible. Otherwise, he felt that he would go crazy. Dijue, it seems like you've never tasted defeat before. Now that you've been defeated in our hands, your will has crumbled. You're indeed powerful, but unfortunately, your mind can't be compared to your strength at all. The saying, a flower in a greenhouse, is referring to people like you, Lin Feng said sarcastically. In fact, it was not correct to say that Dijue was a flower in a greenhouse. It was not that Dijue had never experienced a battle of life and death. He had also experienced a battle of life and death. However, he was powerful and had great innate talent. Therefore, he had always obtained the final victory in the few battles of life and death. As for being hunted down, it had never happened to Dijue before. This was the biggest difference between Lin Feng and Dijue. Lin Feng had relied on his own efforts to grow until now. Along the way, he had also offended many terrifying existences and was hunted down by many terrifying existences. For this reason, even if Lin Feng failed, he could accept it. Failure was not scary. What was scary was losing one's life. After failing, one could cultivate diligently and seek revenge after raising one's cultivation base. However, it was apparent that Dijue did not have such a mentality. Upon hearing Lin Feng's words, Dijue said coldly, "Who said that I've failed? I'm injured because of your sneak attack. How dare you show off in front of me? If you didn't sneak attack me, would you be able to injure me?" Lin Feng pursed his lips and said, "So what if I sneak attack you? Is there any use of tricks in a battle of life and death? Moreover, I'm using the great curse tactic. I'm cursing you. The great curse tactic is a silent attack. It can't be considered a sneak attack. A defeat is a defeat. Even until now, you're still so stubborn. Stop deceiving yourself and others." Dijue's expression turned even gloomier. He said coldly, "Lin Feng, you've completely angered me. I've never wanted to kill someone as much as I do now. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Today, I'll let you have a taste of my supreme bloodline." The moment his words left his mouth, Dijue began to circulate his bloodline. "I'm the Saint Emperor, overlooking the world." Dijue's cold voice suddenly resonated in the heaven and earth. Subsequently, Dijue's bloodline was completely circulated. When Dijue's bloodline was circulated, an unimaginably terrifying aura exuded from his body. At this moment, Dijue seemed to have transformed into an ancient Saint Emperor. The Saint Emperor was born. Overlooking the world, all living beings bowed their heads. If they dared to disobey, soul-burying the 9 heavens, This was the supreme pressure brought about by Di Jue's bloodline. Di Jue's bloodline. It was actually the legendary Saint Emperor's bloodline. Chapter 43:36. The Saint Emperor's bloodline was an extremely heaven-defying bloodline. After the Saint Emperor's bloodline was activated, many people found it hard to resist the terrifying pressure that filled the air. In fact, other than Lin Feng and Yuji, even Bibi, and the rest were still far from Di Jue's strength. Bibi and the rest gave people the impression that they were powerful because they had mastered many innate abilities. Those were the innate abilities that their ancestors had passed down to them. However, in the face of the Saint Emperor's pressure, they were in trouble. It was as though their bodies were fixed in the air. It was difficult for them to move. Even Yuji and Lin Feng felt a great pressure. It was as though there was an ancient mountain pressing down on them. It made it hard for them to move. Di Jue walked toward Lin Feng step by step. His thoughts were the same as before. He still wanted to get rid of Lin Feng first. In his opinion, as long as he got rid of Lin Feng, when the time came, the rest of them would not be much of a threat. Lin Feng, do you know how powerful my Saint Emperor's bloodline is? Do you feel how small you are? Are you ready to die now? Di Jue's cold voice resonated. Lin Feng felt that Di Jue's bloodline had awakened to an extremely high level. It was very likely that he had awakened more than 5 bloodlines. That was terrifying. Any bloodline that had awakened more than 5 times was almost heaven-defying. Moreover, Di Jue's Saint Emperor's bloodline was already so powerful and terrifying. Perhaps only Di Jue himself knew how powerful a bloodline that had awakened more than 5 times was. For example, Lin Feng had awakened the Undying Bloodline, the Sovereign Bloodline, and the Destiny Bloodline. However, Lin Feng's Undying Bloodline had only awakened 3 times. The Sovereign Bloodline had awakened twice, while the Destiny Bloodline had awakened once. The number of times his bloodline had awakened was far less than Di Jue's. It's too early to be happy. Lin Feng activated his Qi aura. In an instant, the terrifying pressure disappeared without a trace. Then, Lin Feng began to activate his Destiny Bloodline. The Destiny Bloodline came from his father, Lin Beitian. It was a terrifying bloodline. Lin Feng activated his Destiny Bloodline. In an instant, the power of fate surged within Lin Feng's body. Meanwhile, Lin Feng began to use the Great Fate skill. The Destiny Bloodline had fused with the power of the Great Destiny art. This was a method that Lin Feng had researched on his own. It was just like the burning wrath of the heavens that Lin Feng had researched, the Wheel of Samsara plus the Gate of Karma, attack. When the Destiny Bloodline and the Great Destiny art operated together, the Destiny Bloodline and the Great Destiny art formed an extremely close connection. At that moment, Lin Feng felt as if he was about to become the god of fate, the ruler of all living beings. This feeling was very strange, but it was so strong. Boundless power of destiny surged out of Lin Feng's body. The power of destiny lingered around Lin Feng's body, protecting Lin Feng's body. Di Jue, you only have the bloodline of a Saint Emperor. How dare you act tough in front of me? What a joke. Today, I'll show you how powerful I am. Lin Feng sneered and took a step toward Di Jue. If they were to compete in terms of dermic powers, Lin Feng might not be a match for Di Jue. However, when it came to bloodline, Lin Feng was never afraid of anyone. After hearing Lin Feng's mocking words, Di Jue's eyes suddenly sank. He said coldly, "Lin Feng, you're really arrogant. However, this also shows how ignorant you are. My Saint Emperor bloodline is one of the top bloodlines in the era of conferred gods. Only those clans that have a Saint Emperor as their ancestor would have a very small chance of awakening this bloodline. Not only do I have the Saint Emperor bloodline, but I've also awakened it 5 times now. What do you have to fight me?" Lin Feng said sarcastically, "Do you think you're so great just because you've awakened it 5 times? Although I've only awakened my bloodline once, I can still beat your Saint Emperor bloodline, who has awakened it 5 times." Lin Feng's words were just too arrogant. He did not take Di Jue seriously at all. How could Di Jue possibly tolerate such vexation? A ghastly killing intent appeared in Di Jue's eyes at once. He said coldly, "You're courting death. In a while, I'll let you know how big the gap between you and me is." Di Jue increased his speed and charged toward Lin Feng. His bloodline power was completely activated. A powerful Saint Emperor's power swirled around Di Jue's fist. He unleashed the unrivaled divine ability, the Saint Emperor's fist. The Sacred Emperor's fist was a bloodline ability passed down from the Sacred Emperor's bloodline. It was a divine ability created by the ancient Sacred Emperor. Di Jue seemed to be a cultivator of the Heavenly Human Clan. The Heavenly Human Clan was one of the most ancient human clans. There had been more than one Saint Emperor in the past. Therefore, the inheritance of their clan was incomparably terrifying. Lin Feng could also sense how powerful Di Jue's punch was. That kind of power made him feel very shocked. Although Lin Feng mocked and looked down on Di Jue, it was just a psychological attack. Lin Feng wanted to disturb Di Jue's mood and make him lose control. Thus, he would not be able to fully display his combat strength. Therefore, Lin Feng actually attached great importance to Di Jue. Of course, Lin Feng was also quite confident in his own skills. The Destiny bloodline combined with the Great Destiny skill was an unparalleled, unique skill. Faced with Di Jue's attack, Lin Feng immediately unleashed the Destiny Fist. The Destiny Fist had merged with the will of the Destiny Dao. When Lin Feng's Destiny Fist collided with Di Jue's Saint Emperor's Fist, the surrounding void was directly shattered by the energy shockwaves that spread out. At this moment, Di Jue, who was originally extremely confident, suddenly had a grave expression on his face. It was because Di Jue realized that the powerful destiny energy had surged into his body and was trying to destroy his bloodline. This was the terrifying effect of the combination of the Destiny bloodline and the Great Destiny skill. Its power was already extremely terrifying. Moreover, it could cause deep damage. This kind of deep damage would destroy the opponent's bloodline in the most overbearing way. This kind of destruction would cause unimaginable damage to the opponent's bloodline. It could even completely destroy the opponent's special bloodline, turning the person who was hit into a mortal with mortal blood and mortal body. P.S. Archean Dragonesque Elephant Technique Group 1, 426393872, Group 2, 5939222637. There are still a few hundred empty spots in both groups. Everyone, please add them. Also, please add Old Mantu's WeChat public account to see his character's biography. Search for Wang Zai Old Mantu on WeChat public account and click follow. Chapter 43:37. The attack of the Destiny bloodline combined with the Great Destiny skill was just too overbearing. Therefore, when he sensed the condition of his bloodline, he quickly retreated. At the same time, he continued to circulate his Saint Emperor bloodline to block the portion of the power of destiny that was surging into his body. Di Jue's cultivation base was profound. His cultivation base was powerful, and his bloodline was powerful. Therefore, the portion of the power of destiny that was surging into his body was still unable to destroy Di Jue's bloodline. Regarding this, Lin Feng was also clear about it. In order to destroy Di Jue's bloodline, he would need a more powerful attack. Lin Feng would not give Di Jue the chance to get rid of him easily. Therefore, when Di Jue retreated, Lin Feng chased after him. Lin Feng's speed was just too fast. It was too difficult for Di Jue to get rid of Lin Feng. Lin Feng soon arrived in front of Di Jue and threw out another fist of destiny at Di Jue. The power of the punch was much more powerful than before. Lin Feng was still in the stage of adapting to the first punch. The second punch, on the other hand, began to gradually display the terrifying aspect of this unique skill. Di Jue's face could not help but turn grave. He was now entangled with Lin Feng. It was not easy for him to get rid of Lin Feng. He had no choice but to fight against Lin Feng's attack head-on. In the face of Lin Feng's attack, Di Jue made his move. This time, a Saint Emperor's silhouette rushed out of his body. Di Jue did not collide with Lin Feng's punch like before. This was because when he came into contact with Lin Feng's body, the strange power of fate would then surge into his body. This Saint Emperor's silhouette was extremely powerful. The aura that was emitted from his body was suffocating. Bang! Lin Feng collided with this Saint Emperor's silhouette. This Saint Emperor's silhouette could not fight against Lin Feng's attack. After colliding with Lin Feng, countless cracks appeared on its body. It would shatter at any time. However, this was enough for Di Jue to get rid of Lin Feng. Di Ju retreated hastily, wanting to widen the distance between him and Lin Feng. Di Jue wanted to dissolve the power of destiny in his body before using his dermic powers to circulate his divine ability to deal with Lin Feng. Di Ju believed him. Even if Lin Feng had 3 heads and 6 arms, he wouldn't be able to compete with him in terms of transcendence energy. However, when Di Ju took a step back, Yuji made her move. When Di Ju was suppressed by Lin Feng, the Saint Emperor's pressure that permeated the heavens and the earth had greatly weakened. Therefore, Yuji also regained her mobility. Yuji seized the opportunity and took out a jade talisman. That jade talisman was called the Jade Talisman of Destruction. It was said that it was a jade talisman created by the second god of destruction. Destruction and governance were integrated into it. Once the power of that jade talisman erupted, it would definitely be terrifying to the extreme. That jade talisman was very precious under normal circumstances. Yuji was also unwilling to take out that jade talisman, because that jade talisman was a treasure that could only be used at the most critical moment. However, now, in order to get rid of Di Jue, Yuji couldn't care less anymore. Boom! A loud explosion reverberated in the air. That jade talisman of destruction directly exploded. The explosion of that jade talisman of destruction formed an unimaginable destructive force. As for those destructive forces, all of them flooded towards Di Jue. Di Jue's reaction speed was very fast. He wanted to travel through the void and leave this area. However, the destructive force that was generated when that jade talisman of destruction exploded was just too powerful. The void was shattered by the explosion. Di Jue was sent flying. Arg! Di Jue's painful roar resonated from the center of the explosion. Di Jue flew out from the center of the explosion. At this moment, Di Jue's clothes were ragged and there was blood all over his body. The explosion of the Jade Talisman of Destruction had caused Di Jue extremely serious injuries. After witnessing the power of the Jade Talisman of Destruction, Lin Feng could not help but reveal an extremely shocked expression on his face. The power of that Jade Talisman of Destruction that Yuji took out was just too terrifying. It was really shocking. A powerful person like Di Jue was actually injured to such an extent. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, Lin Feng did not even dare to believe his own eyes. However, all of this was the truth. Lin Feng had no choice but to believe it. Lin Feng instantly regained his senses. Di Jue's injuries were not light to begin with. Now, he was injured by Yuji's jade talisman of destruction. Injuries on top of injuries. At this moment, due to his injuries, Di Juyi's combat strength had definitely fallen to an extremely low point. It was far from being comparable to his peak state. Therefore, now was a great opportunity to kill Di Juyi. Lin Feng controlled many powerful Dharma treasures to attack Di Juyi. At the same time, Yuji also controlled her bronze book to attack Di Juyi. Bibi Blackie, Nangong Lingwei, the Emperor Archaic, and the Primordial Ancestor Worm. The two great insect groups also made their moves. They attacked Di Juyi. Di Juyi held the Five Saints' shield in one hand. An energy shield spread out from the Five Saints' shield, protecting him within it. However, when many attacks came at him, Di Juyi was sent flying. The defensive shield formed by the Five Saints' shield was instantly destroyed. A large number of insects wrapped around Di Juyi's body. Then they began to gnaw on his body. Ah! Di Juyi screamed in agony again. When had he ever been in such a miserable state? This made Di Juyi mad. A large amount of saint light surged out of Di Juyi's body. The saint light was terrifying. It instantly shattered the spiritual insects that were gnawing on his body. Just you wait. I won't let all of you go. Di Juyi roared with hatred. Then he wanted to travel through the void and escape. Lin Feng did not give Di Juyi the chance at all. He shattered the void with a punch. Di Juyi was sent flying. Di Juyi, it's time for you to die. Lin Feng looked at Di Juyi with an indifferent expression. He charged at Di Juyi. Yuji, Nangong Lingwei, Bibi, and the others made their moves. They surrounded Di Juyi and attacked him together. Di Juyi also knew that his situation was very bad. Therefore, he did not dare to stay any longer. He turned around and fled into the depths of the shattered void. Seeing Di Juyi fleeing into the shattered void, Lin Feng's expression turned slightly grave. It was easy to get lost in the shattered void. Di Juyi might really escape if he fled into it. Lin Feng chased after him all the way. However, he still could not stop Di Juyi. Di Juyi charged into the shattered void. Di Juyi die. At this moment, Yuji also flew over. She threw more than 10 jade talismans into the shattered void. Di Juyi did not know what those jade talismans were. The jade talismans exploded one after another, causing a huge explosion in the shattered void. No! Di Juyi screamed in horror. In the next moment, Di Juyi was instantly drowned by the destructive energy that was produced when the shattered void exploded. Chapter 43:38. Is he dead? Lin Feng could not help but take a deep breath. Did a peerless figure like Di Juyi really die just like that? Lin Feng felt a little incredulous. However, everything seemed real. Di Juyi. It seemed like he was really dead. Although Di Juyi was extremely powerful. However, void explosion. Logically speaking, he should have died. Moreover, he was injured and had to endure the might of the void explosion. These jade talismans of mine are called the heaven-shattering jade talismans. They're most suitable for use in a shattered void. Once these heaven-shattering jade talismans are used in a shattered void, they'll immediately erupt with an unimaginably terrifying power. Moreover, it'll cause various chain reactions and eventually lead to the void explosion. The void explosion can even bury a human immortal or an immortal of a higher level, let alone Di Juyi who's injured. Yuji said, Di Juyi only has himself to blame for dying here. Lin Feng sneered. Although he still felt that Di Juyi was so terrifying, it was a little unbelievable that such a heaven-defying figure would die here. However, what happened before his eyes told Lin Feng that Di Juyi was indeed dead. The only pity was that he could not obtain Di Jue's storage ring. That fellow's storage ring must contain countless treasures. Lin Feng sent Bibi, Blackie, the Emperor Archaic, the primordial ancestral worm, the 2 insect swarms, and many Dharma treasures back to the time and space. Then Lin Feng, Yuji, and Nangong Lingwei flew toward the Dao Saint Palace. He wondered how the situation was at the Dao Saint Palace. Had the Stone Sovereign's son launched an attack on the Dao Saint Palace? When they arrived at the Dao Saint State, a majestic voice suddenly reverberated between heaven and earth. It was like the divine voice of heaven and earth. It shook heaven and earth. The Dao Saint Palace is heartless and tyrannical. They killed the innocent and persecuted the ancestors of the Stone Clan. Cultivators of our generation shall wipe out the Dao Saint Palace and avenge our ancestors. Those who have nothing to do with the Dao Saint Palace are not allowed to enter the Dao Saint Palace. Otherwise, they'll be killed without mercy. When he heard that voice, Lin Feng's spirit suddenly rose. His cultivation was terrifying. His shout had probably spread throughout the entire Dao Saint Great World. It must have been the Stone Emperor's son. He was here to avenge his father's tragic death. The war is about to start. Let's speed up. Lin Feng said in a deep voice. With a wave of his hand, powerful magic power surged out and wrapped around Yuji and Nangong Lingwei. Lin Feng shuttled through the void and hurried in the direction of Dao Saint Palace. Outside Dao Saint Palace, bestial roars shook the sky. They were huge beasts with bodies the size of mountains. Above each ferocious beast stood a dense crowd of cultivators. These cultivators were all descendants of the Stone Sovereign's former subordinates. In the past, the Stone Emperor's might had shaken the region, and he was very generous to his subordinates. Even though the Stone Sovereign had been dead for countless years, the descendants of his subordinates still supported his son. This was a huge force, and now they were all united around the Stone Emperor's son. One could only imagine how terrifying this force was. Roar, roar. A low roar came from the forest. The earth was shaking violently. One golden ape after another charged out of the forest. Over 100 of them charged out together. Behind the golden apes was a large army of ferocious beasts. The golden apes were one of the overlords of the ancient forest of Dao Saint, especially after the ancient golden ape had awakened. The tribe's rallying power was even stronger. Now, the ferocious beasts had arrived under the lead of the golden apes. Woo, 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 woo. The horn of war had already been blown. Kill! Earth-shaking battle cries resounded through the clouds. The army launched an attack on Dao Saint Palace. Activate the protective formation and retaliate against the invaders. A cold voice rang out in Dao Saint Palace. The peak human immortal of Dao Saint Palace, Tuoba Tian, had come out of seclusion. He was a tall and burly middle-aged cultivator, and he exuded a terrifying aura. Soon, the protective formation of Dao Saint Palace was activated. It protected the Dao Saint Palace. My lord, the upper echelons of Dao Saint Palace arrived and bowed to Tuoba Tian. No need for formalities. Today, we must bury the Stone Emperor's son in Dao Saint Palace. Tuoba Tian said. This expert was a terrifying existence who had touched the true immortal realm in the past, but after sealing himself in the divine stone, his realm had been declining. Therefore, his current cultivation couldn't be compared to when he was at his peak. However, while Tuoba Tian was sealing himself, he had a new understanding of himself, of life, and of the Tao. So, the current Tuoba Tian, he had already completed a spiritual transformation. He believed, not long after, his strength would not only recover. Moreover, he could even reach the true immortal realm. True immortal. That was a realm that countless people yearned for. Countless people spent their entire lives trying to reach it. It was a realm that they could not break through. Tuobatian had chosen to seal himself in the divine stone because he had no hope of reaching the true immortal realm. If he allowed time to pass, he would not be able to break through until his death. So he sealed himself in the divine stone and cut off the flow of time. In the endless years, he comprehended the mysteries of the true immortal realm. Sometimes he would sleep, and sometimes he would wake up. Between sleeping and waking, he comprehended the secrets of the true immortal realm. And now, he had finally comprehended the great Tao. A month later, Lin Feng and the other two arrived at Tao Saint Palace. Outside Tao Saint Palace, there were mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Countless lives had been lost. At this moment, a great battle had broken out inside Tao Saint Palace. The Stone Emperor's son's subordinates had spent a full month to break through the Tao Saint Palace's protective array. During this 1 month, their side had suffered extremely heavy losses. Their hatred had been accumulating. Their killing intent had been accumulating. So when the array was broken, the Stone Emperor's son's subordinates had madly charged into Tao Saint Palace. Looking at the mountains of corpses, Lin Feng could not help but frown. Was the Stone Emperor's son really only here for revenge? Lin Feng felt that the Stone Emperor's son might have other motives. Of course, revenge was one of the Stone Emperor's son's goals, but it was not the only one. The feeling was strong, but Lin Feng could not be sure if it was true. Come out, Heavenly Tao Limitless diagram. Let's fight. At this moment, a cold voice came from the depths of the palace. Lin Feng looked over and saw a middle-aged cultivator standing in the air, looking down on the world. The middle-aged cultivator's aura was simply too terrifying, causing everyone's hair to stand on end and their expressions to change. Is he the Stone Emperor's son? When Lin Feng saw the middle-aged man, he couldn't help but take a deep breath. Chapter 43:39. Ha ha ha! If your father were still alive, he would be qualified to fight me. Do you think you are? You want to fight me too? The Heavenly Tao Infinite diagram's voice suddenly came from the depths of the Tao Saint Palace. Lin Feng knew that location. It was the location of the Tao Source Immortal Palace. The Tao Saint Palace itself was inside the Tao Source Immortal Palace. The Heavenly Tao Infinite diagram was very arrogant. After all, it was an ancient weapon. It was very powerful. It was unimaginable. Therefore, it was normal for it to be so arrogant. If you don't attack, I'll slaughter all the cultivators of the Tao Saint Palace. The Stone Sovereign's son said indifferently. He raised his right hand and attacked the group of Tao Saint Palace experts in the distance. Bang! The bodies of over 1,000 experts exploded, and they died on the spot. The Stone Sovereign's son was too powerful. He attacked. His opponents didn't even have a chance to resist. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. The Heavenly Tao Infinite diagram said. Then, the void cracked. An ancient diagram flew out. The diagram lingered in the chaos and gently swept across. The void collapsed. The diagram's power was too terrifying. Everyone could feel the power of the ancient diagram. Their hair stood on end. The Heavenly Tao Infinite diagram flew out of the Tao Source Immortal Palace. It attacked the Stone Sovereign's son. The Heavenly Tao Infinite diagram was about to hit the Stone Sovereign's son. However, the Stone Sovereign's son reached out with his right hand and blocked the Heavenly Tao Infinite diagram's terrifying power. Bang! The two sides collided fiercely. The void collapsed, and a large number of palaces collapsed. Many cultivators who were engaged in battle also died, one after another. Among the dead cultivators were the Stone Sovereign's son's subordinates, as well as experts of the Tao Saint Palace. The Stone Sovereign's son frowned. Let's fight in the Outlands. The Stone Sovereign's son stepped into the Outland world. I'll accompany you to the end. The Heavenly Tao Infinite diagram sneered and quickly rushed toward the Outlands. This is a good chance. Let's go and rob the Tao Source Immortal Palace. Lin Feng's face lit up with joy. If the Heaven Tao Limitless diagram did not leave the Tao Source Immortal Hall, Lin Feng would not have the chance to rob the Tao Source Immortal Hall. But now, he saw an opportunity to rob the Tao Source Immortal Palace. Thinking about the endless supply of Tao Source Immortal pills and treasures in the Tao Source Immortal Palace, there were even ancient immortal scriptures. Lin Feng felt a surge of emotion and found it hard to control himself. He, Yuji, and Nangong Lingwei quickly flew towards the Tao Source Immortal Palace. Along the way, the Sky Demon Emperor's son's subordinates attacked Lin Feng's group. However, they were all repelled by Lin Feng and the other two. They did not kill the subordinates of the Heavenly Demon Emperor's son. Traitor, how dare you come back? Shangguan Bingyun, Nangong Lingwei, why are you two with this traitor? They are with the traitor Lin Feng. They must be jackals of the same lair. Capture them and wait for the Crown Prince to return. We'll hand them over to him. Dozens of powerful cultivators arrived, including the Wanyang cultivator and the old man from the Devil Realm, who were in the realm of Loose Immortal. Boom, boom, boom. Under the joint efforts of the Wanyang cultivator and the Devil Realm Elder, the group of experts attacked Lin Feng's group. Their attacks were extremely terrifying. It was as if they could destroy the heavens and the earth. Everyone could not help but turn pale. However, Lin Feng was not afraid at all. He waved his hand, and the two insect swarms, the Emperor Archaic, the primordial ancestral insect, Bibi and Blackie, were all summoned by Lin Feng. Lin Feng did not summon the three-headed viper because it had reached a critical stage of cultivation. Perhaps the three-headed viper was about to transform. Therefore, Lin Feng didn't disturb the three-headed viper. Lin Feng took out many Dharma treasures and attacked the Wanyang cultivator, the Devil Realm Elder, and the others. Yuji and Nangong Lingwei also attacked. When the Wanyang cultivator and the Devil Realm Elder saw Lin Feng's swarm of insects, their expressions turned cold. The Devil Realm Elder was already prepared. He took out the insect-repellent spiritual smoke and used it to deal with Lin Feng's swarm of insects. After smelling the insect-repellent spiritual smoke, a large number of insects quickly scattered in all directions. The others quickly attacked under the lead of the Wanyang cultivator. They also took out many powerful Dharma treasures and attacked Lin Feng's group. The Dharma treasures of both sides collided in midair, and a violent collision sound was heard. However, in the next moment, the Devil Realm Elder let out a painful roar. The Devil Realm Elder lowered his head and looked at his chest. There was a bloody hole in his chest. Fresh blood flowed out from the bloody hole. Just now, Lin Feng used the great cursing technique on the old man from the demon world when he released the insect-repellent spiritual smoke. The Devil Realm Elder's realm was too high. With him around, it would not be easy to deal with these people. Therefore, the best way was to get rid of the Devil Realm Elder first. Just now, the Devil Realm Elder's attention was focused on using the insect-repellent spiritual smoke. It was precisely because of this that Lin Feng found an opportunity and successfully used the Great Curse technique on him. The success rate of the Great Curse technique was not particularly high. Firstly, it was because this kind of strange ability had a relatively low success rate. Secondly, if the other party was in a state of constant vigilance, the Great Curse technique's restraint was quite great. The success rate of the Great Curse technique would be lowered again. The Devil Realm Elder looked confident, thinking that it would not be difficult to deal with Lin Feng and the others. After all, his cultivation was too strong. In addition, there was Wanyang Wanren, a loose immortal with a high realm, as well as dozens of subimmortals or Emperor Realm experts. Wouldn't it be easy to deal with Lin Feng and the others? It was precisely because of this moment of carelessness that Lin Feng successfully used the Great Curse technique on him. Of course, there was another reason. As his cultivation increased, Lin Feng's understanding of the Tao became deeper and deeper, including his understanding of the Great Curse technique. Therefore, when Lin Feng used the Great Cursing technique, his success rate was much higher than when he had used it before. The Devil Realm Elder suffered a calamity, and his injuries were not light. Lin Feng then used the Great Rain technique. The rain poured down. The rain that fell at this moment was not ordinary rain. It was spirit rain. The rainwater contained a vast amount of spiritual energy. After the rain fell, the insect-repellent spiritual smoke that the Devil Realm Elder used was immediately diluted by the rain. Not long after, the insect-repellent spiritual smoke was completely washed away by the rain. Without the deterrence of the insect-repellent spiritual smoke, the dense swarm of insects directly rushed towards the Devil Realm Elder, Wanyang Wanren, and the others. The dense swarm of insects instantly drowned the Devil Realm Elder, Wanyang Wanren, and the others. Chapter 43:40. Screams came out one after another, and people kept dying under the siege of the swarm. Those cultivators died extremely miserably. They were eaten clean by the swarm, leaving only white bones behind. However, Lin Feng didn't sympathize with these people. The world of cultivators was originally so cruel. It was either you die or I die. If these people didn't die, Lin Feng might be the one to die. So, in that case, it was better for these people to die. Lin Feng locked onto the old man. From the devil world, he rushed forward, wanting to kill the old man from the devil world. But at this time, the devil light in the old man's body surged. The devil light that was constantly gushing out from his body directly sent the densely packed insects flying. Then, the old man from the devil world turned around and flew into the distance. Lin Feng was stunned. Then he came back to his senses. This old thing, it looked like he was going to escape. "Brat, just you wait. I won't let you go," the old man from the devil world said fiercely. Lin Feng chased after the old man from the devil world, but the old man from the devil world directly escaped into the void. Lin Feng wanted to imprison the void and then drag the old man from the devil world out of the void. However, he found that after the void was imprisoned, the old man from the devil world was still nowhere to be found. It seemed that he had escaped. Lin Feng couldn't help but roll his eyes. Of course, the old man from the devil world had a high realm. However, he escaped. It wasn't something that was unacceptable. Then, Lin Feng charged towards the Wanyang cultivator. The Wanyang cultivator saw that the old man from the devil world had already escaped. This guy also wanted to escape. But Lin Feng didn't give the Wanyang cultivator a chance at all. Many magic treasures attacked the Wanyang cultivator. The Wanyang cultivator was sent flying. Then Lin Feng took out the stone of prison suppression. The stone of prison suppression directly suppressed the Wanyang cultivator. At the same time, the mysterious magic stone that Nangong Lingwei took out also suppressed the Wanyang cultivator. Under the suppression of the stone of prison suppression and the mysterious magic stone, no matter how high the Wanyang cultivator's realm was, it was difficult to resist. In the end, Wanyang cultivator was suppressed in the void. "Don't kill me! Don't kill me! I'm willing to submit," Wanyang Sanren screamed in horror. although he was a loose, immortal fifth firmament expert. But after being suppressed, he was just a prisoner. Wanyang Sanren didn't want to die. He wanted to live a good life. Therefore, dignity, face, loyalty, and so on. These things. He could even give up Wanyang Sanren. He just wanted to live. Those who believe in me shall have eternal life. Lin Feng walked towards Wanyang Sanren. Then, he gently touched Wanyang Cultivator's forehead. In an instant, a stream of purifying power poured into Wanyang Cultivator's forehead. When the purifying power entered Wanyang Cultivator's forehead, Wanyang Cultivator's eyes lit up. Wanyang Sanren was instantly converted by Lin Feng and became Lin Feng's slave. Now, Lin Feng wanted Wanyang Sanren to commit suicide. Wanyang Sanren would not hesitate to commit suicide. "Greetings, young master." Wanyang Sanren bowed to Lin Feng. "You may dispense with the formalities," Lin Feng said. Then Lin Feng, Wanyang Sanren, Yuji, Nangong Lingwei, Bibi, Blackie, Emperor Archaic, and the primordial ancestral insect quickly flew towards the depths. They were surrounded by the two large insect swarms. Wherever the two large insect swarms passed, the living beings retreated. No one dared to approach the two large insect swarms for fear of being attacked. It was no wonder that those cultivators were so careful. They couldn't be blamed for being so careful, mainly because the two large insect swarms were too terrifying. In the end, Lin Feng and the others arrived at the depths. Within 10 miles of the Tao Source Immortal Palace, there were powerful restrictions. Those restrictions, 64 layers of deadly formations, were formed. Therefore, in order to reach the Tao Source Immortal Palace, one must first pass through these 64 killing arrays. For a cultivator, it was simply too difficult to pass through the 64 death arrays. The dangers contained in those killing arrays were unimaginable. However, for Lin Feng, passing through those arrays, it was not impossible. Lin Feng used the formation splitting technique. One by one, the arrays split open, and Lin Feng led everyone into the arrays. In addition to Lin Feng and the others, many other cultivators were also trying to pass through the arrays. The subordinates of the Stone Sovereign's son naturally knew that the Tao Source Immortal Palace stored all kinds of treasures and endless Tao Source Immortal Pills. Therefore, they also wanted to enter and loot it. Therefore, many array masters joined forces to break through the arrays. However, the arrays here were extremely powerful. Therefore, many experts were trapped in the arrays. Even if they could pass through the 64 killing arrays, it would still take a long time. The terror of the Celestial Master Path's inheritance was vividly displayed at this time. Many arrays could not stop Lin Feng's footsteps until they arrived at the 49th array. Only then did Lin Feng run into trouble. However, it did not matter. Lin Feng still had Bibi. Bibi's racial talent was so strong that she could ignore many arrays and pass through countless arrays. Lin Feng's array skills and Bibi's racial talent combined was simply an invincible combination. Lin Feng and Bibi led everyone through the arrays quickly. Their speed was extremely fast. In the end, they successfully passed through the 64 killing arrays. What appeared in front of them was a huge palace. The palace was 300 to 400 meters tall and covered an area of more than 10,000 square meters. The size of the palace was extremely shocking. Above the plaque, at the main entrance of the main hall, there was a huge plaque. On the horizontal board, there were 4 large words written in flamboyant calligraphy. Tao Source Immortal Palace. They finally arrived at the Tao Source Immortal Palace. Lin Feng's face showed a trace of a smile, but then he frowned, because the Tao Source Immortal Palace was protected by a huge light shield. It was a light shield condensed from immortal light. At this time, Wanyang Sanren said, "Young master, Kong Mingdao is in the Tao Source Immortal Palace. What? Kong Mingdao is in there? Hearing this, Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. Kong Mingdao's cultivation was in the human immortal realm. Although he was only in the initial stage of the human immortal realm, he was still a human immortal. A human immortal was not something a rogue immortal could compare to. Kong Mingdao had chased after Lin Feng before. Lin Feng knew how terrifying Kong Mingdao was. Just now, Lin Feng saw many experts of the Tao Saint Palace fighting against the Stone Sovereign Sun's subordinates. The battle was extremely intense. However, Lin Feng did not see Kong Mingdao's figure. It turned out that this guy was in the Tao Source Immortal Palace after the Heavenly Tao Limitless diagram left. Lin Feng's expression became serious. With a human immortal realm expert here, it would not be easy to rob the Tao Source Immortal Palace. Chapter 43-41. Lin Feng, you really have guts. You actually dare to come to the Tao Source Immortal Palace. Wanyang Sanren, Yuji, Nangong Lingwei, what's the situation with the three of you? Why is she hanging out with this brat? At this moment, a cold voice was heard. The owner of this voice was Kong Mingdao. Yuji and Nangong Lingwei completely ignored Kong Mingdao. Wanyang Sanren said, "Fellow Taoist Kong, joining Lin Gongzi is the right choice. Only then can you cultivate the great Tao. Don't be stubborn." After hearing Wanyang Sanren's words, Kong Mingdao was almost angered to death. Wanyang Sanren was a loose immortal of the Tao Saint Palace. It was fine if he joined Lin Feng, but now he actually came to persuade him to surrender. This was really intolerable. Kong Mingdao said coldly, "Wanyang Sanren, you betrayed the Tao Saint Palace. You won't have a good ending." Lin Feng calculated the difference in strength between the two sides. Kong Mingdao's realm was high. There should be some experts in the Tao Source Immortal Palace. However, these human insect swarms could be dealt with. The main thing to pay attention to was Kong Mingdao. Lin Feng's people's realm was far inferior to Kong Mingdao's. However, Lin Feng had more experts equivalent to loose immortals. In addition to the help of the two insect swarms, Lin Feng's strength was also very strong. Of course, even if these forces were added together, Lin Feng felt that it was still a bit lacking to deal with a terrifying existence like Kong Mingdao. However, Lin Feng still had an extremely heaven-defying method. That was to control the great array here. There were 64 great arrays set up here. The power of each great array was very strong. So, if he could make use of these spirit arrays, then his chances of dealing with Kong Mingdao would greatly increase. Of course, even so, he still had to bear a great risk. After all, they were dealing with a human immortal expert. An expert of this level was not to be underestimated. Lin Feng attempted to use the heaven-seizing grand array to seize control of this grand array. After trying it out, Lin Feng discovered that he could control 42 of the formations. But as for the other great formations, Lin Feng was unable to control it. But this was enough. Lin Feng began to try to activate the power of those large formations. Boom, boom, boom. Waves of terrifying fluctuations surged out. The power of the 42 great formations instantly erupted. All kinds of attacks converged and blasted toward the immortal Qi light shield. Control the formation? Kong Mingdao, who was overseeing the Tao Source Immortal Palace, saw the situation outside, and his face sank. The fact that Lin Feng was able to control the arrays outside was beyond Kong Mingdao's expectations. Kong Mingdao had never expected such a thing to happen. However, even if Lin Feng could control many of the great arrays outside, he didn't care. Kong Mingdao was a human immortal expert, so he was extremely confident in his own strength. If not for the Heavenly Tao Limitless diagram telling him not to leave the Dao Source Immortal Palace. Kong Mingdao would have already gone to kill Lin Feng and the others. Bang! 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 The torrent of attacks formed by the many great arrays slammed into the Immortal Qi Light Shield, causing it to shake violently. However, the Immortal Qi Light Shield only shook but didn't show any signs of damage. Clearly, the attacks of the great arrays outside couldn't break the Immortal Qi Light Shield. Lin Feng took out many magic treasures and attacked the Immortal Qi Light Shield. Yuji and the others also attacked. They attacked the Immortal Qi Light Shield. Bang! 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 Their attacks slammed into the Immortal Qi Light Shield. Then, an earth-shattering sound was heard. As time passed, cracks began to appear on the Immortal Qi Light Shield. The Immortal Qi Light Shield began to show signs of cracking. Seeing this scene, Lin Feng's face lit up with joy. "Ancestor, what do we do now? Do you want to go out and kill those guys? If we don't go out now, the Immortal Qi Light Shield will be destroyed in less than an hour." A Spirit Array Master said. There were dozens of Spirit Array Masters overseeing the Dao Source Immortal Palace, activating various great arrays, and the Immortal Qi Light Shield. However, Lin Feng directly used the heaven-seizing Great Array to take away their control of the Great Arrays. Now, they could still control the 22 Great Arrays and the Immortal Qi Light Shield. However, they weren't the ones who set up the Great Arrays, so they could only let the Great Arrays operate normally. They couldn't let the Great Arrays outside attack Lin Feng and the others. And now, the Immortal Qi Light Shield was indeed in a very bad situation. Kong Mingdao's face couldn't help but become extremely gloomy. The Heavenly Dao Limitless Diagram did tell him not to leave the Dao Source Immortal Palace. However, the Heavenly Dao Limitless Diagram probably didn't expect Lin Feng and the others to arrive outside the Dao Source Immortal Palace so quickly, and attacked the Immortal Qi Light Shield outside the Dao Source Immortal Palace. Thinking of this, Kong Mingdao couldn't help but take a deep breath. He felt that the current situation was beyond the Heavenly Dao Limitless Diagram's expectations. Therefore, even if he left the Dao Source Immortal Palace to kill Lin Feng and the others, there was a reason for it, and it was understandable. Therefore, even if the Heavenly Dao Limitless Diagram knew that he had disobeyed his orders in the future, it probably wouldn't blame him. After thinking of this, Kong Mingdao said, "All right, everyone, follow me out and kill Lin Feng and the others. When the time comes, it will definitely be a great merit." "Kill, kill, kill," these cultivators shouted loudly. Then, hundreds of cultivators quickly rushed out under Kong Mingdao's lead. Good timing. After seeing those cultivators rushing out, Lin Feng directly controlled the many great arrays to attack the group of cultivators. Those attacks exploded in the group of cultivators. Many cultivators were blasted away. However, those people had defensive magic treasures to protect themselves. Therefore, they didn't suffer too serious injuries. It was just that the defensive light shield formed by their defensive magic treasures had begun to crack. At this moment, the dense swarm of insects instantly drowned those cultivators. Some cultivators took out flames to burn the swarm to death, but it was completely useless. Ordinary flames couldn't cause any damage to the swarm. Only heavenly flames could hurt the swarm, but these people clearly didn't have any heavenly flames. After the swarm of insects surrounded those cultivators, they quickly gnawed away at the defensive light shield formed by their defensive magic treasures. Then, miserable screams rang out incessantly as those cultivators were devoured by the swarm of insects. However, Kong Mingdao was incomparably terrifying. His body surged with terrifying immortal light, and the swarm of insects was blasted away. Kong Mingdao locked onto Lin Feng and quickly charged towards Lin Feng. "Kill him! Lin Feng shouted in a deep voice and took the lead in controlling more than 10 powerful magic treasures to attack Kong Mingdao. Chapter 43-42. After Lin Feng made his move, the others followed suit and launched their attacks at Kong Mingdao. At the same time, the attacks of the 42 Great Formations also blasted toward Kong Mingdao. It's useless. You're all ants in front of a human immortal. Kong Mingdao sneered. He quickly walked toward Lin Feng in the void. With a wave of his hand, endless immortal light surged out. The immortal light surged in all directions. Bang, bang, bang. When the attacks blasted toward Kong Mingdao, a series of violent collisions rang out. Regardless of whether it was the attacks of the magic treasures or the great formations, they were all blocked by the immortal light released by Kong Mingdao. The might of a human immortal is not something that ants like you can imagine. Kong Mingdao said arrogantly with an insufferably arrogant look on his face. It was no wonder that Kong Mingdao was so arrogant. He was indeed too powerful. After blocking everyone's attacks, Kong Mingdao used an extremely powerful divine ability. The divine ability he used was called the Limitless Heaven and Earth Technique. This attack formed a kind of ripple of the Great Tao. With Kong Mingdao as the center, the ripple of the Great Tao spread out in all directions. Terrifying, terrifying, terrifying. After sensing the ripple of the Great Tao, Lin Feng could not help but reveal an extremely shocked expression. The attack of a human immortal was just too powerful. He shouted, "Get out of the way!" After hearing Lin Feng's warning, no one dared to hesitate and retreated in all directions. However, Kong Mingdao's attack was just too powerful. Even though everyone had already retreated far away, even so, they were still sent flying by Kong Mingdao's attack. Moreover, they were all seriously injured. Lin Feng's expression turned extremely ugly. Kong Mingdao was probably not someone who could fight against him. He had underestimated the combat strength of a human immortal. Lin Feng knew that they had to retreat. Otherwise, the casualties on their side would be disastrous. Lin Feng summoned the door of everlasting life. A loud rumbling sound rang out. The door of everlasting life directly suppressed Kong Mingdao. The door of everlasting life emitted a terrifying aura that made one's hair stand on end. That aura was simply too terrifying. The power of the door of everlasting life was simply unimaginable. The door of everlasting life headed straight for Kong Mingdao. Lin Feng shouted, "Get out of here, quickly! Kong Mingdao is not someone we can fight against." Kong Mingdao sneered, "It's too late to retreat. Today, none of you will be able to escape. All of you will die here." Kong Mingdao swung his right fist at the shadow of the door of everlasting life descending from the sky. With a wave of his left hand, boundless immortal chi surged out and completely sealed the surrounding void. Everyone was unable to leave this place. The situation was extremely bad. After Kong Mingdao's 36 consecutive punches, the illusory image of the door of everlasting life that Lin Feng had summoned began to crack. "This is going to be troublesome." Lin Feng's lips became extremely dry. Perhaps he could only fight to the death. The next moment, Kong Mingdao shattered the illusory image of the door of everlasting life. Just as he was about to charge towards Lin Feng, suddenly, Kong Mingdao stopped and looked to his left. Kong Mingdao's pupils constricted. Lin Feng looked over and was immediately shocked. The Red World Fairy had actually appeared here. This was something that Lin Feng had not expected at all. Who would have thought that the Red World Fairy would appear here? "My first wife is here. This time, Kong Mingdao is definitely done for." Lin Feng's heart was instantly filled with joy. Of course, he did not dare to say these words in front of the Red World Fairy. Lin Feng was certain that the Red World Fairy was his first wife. Lin Feng intended to conquer the Red World Fairy, but that was a matter for the future, not now. As of now, Lin Feng was still a far cry from the Red World Fairy. "Who are you?" Kong Mingdao looked coldly at the Red World Fairy and asked, "I'm here to look for the immortal sutra passed down from the Tao Sacred Palace," the Red World Fairy said indifferently. The Red World Fairy seemed to always have such an emotionless expression. "You'd better back off. I'll pretend that nothing happened," Kong Mingdao said with an indifferent expression. He was actually somewhat afraid of the Red World Fairy. Otherwise, he would not have needed to speak so much with the Red World Fairy. Although Kong Mingdao didn't know what immortal Venerable Hong Chen's cultivation base was, he could feel that the woman in front of him wasn't someone he could casually provoke. If he did, the consequences would be unimaginable. Even if these top experts did not have the sudden inspiration ability, their intuition was often very accurate. Therefore, Kong Mingdao was so afraid of the Red World Fairy after seeing the Red World Fairy. Lin Feng said, "Kong Mingdao, you idiot! I forgot to tell you that this fairy in front of you is your grandfather's backer." Lin Feng did not have anything to be embarrassed about. He was just using the tiger's skin. Of course, he and the Red World Fairy had an inseparable and complicated relationship. In the past, Lin Feng was the Red World Fairy's love tribulation. Although the Red World Fairy later cut off the love tribulation, their fates had long been intertwined. Other than Lin Feng, if any other man dared to be so presumptuous in front of the Red World Fairy, they would have been slapped to death by the Red World Fairy. Hearing Lin Feng's words, Kong Mingdao's expression suddenly changed. He turned and rushed towards the Tao Source Immortal Palace. He wanted to close the door of the Tao Source Immortal Palace. Even if the immortal Qi barrier outside was shattered, as long as he closed the door of the Tao Source Immortal Palace, the Tao Source Immortal Palace would be able to hold on for a while. During this time, he could summon the heavenly Tao everlasting diagram that had entered the space-time outside the realm. When the heavenly Tao everlasting diagram returned, when that time came, all these invaders would die. Since you've already come out of the Tao Source Immortal Palace, there's no need to go back, the Red World Fairy said. She stepped towards Kong Mingdao, then stretched out her slender finger and lightly pointed at Kong Mingdao. Following that, a terrifying force blasted towards Kong Mingdao. Kong Mingdao's expression was extremely ugly. He turned and slapped towards the Red World Fairy's attack. Dense runes appeared on Kong Mingdao's body. Clearly, he had used an extremely powerful technique. However, his palm was instantly pierced through by the Red World Fairy's attack. Then, the mysterious force condensed into a beam of light that instantly pierced through Kong Mingdao's chest. How did this happen? Kong Mingdao lowered his head and looked at the wound on his chest that was constantly bleeding. He muttered, unable to accept all this. He was a human immortal, but he was actually killed in a single move. What a great irony! Kong Mingdao's body fell to the ground on his back, dead. Chapter 43:43. She's too strong. Lin Feng couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The Red World Fairy was already able to kill a human, immortal level powerhouse in seconds. It was really incredible. However, Lin Feng thought of the battle in 9 regions. At that time, the Red World Fairy was already able to fight against an Emperor-level powerhouse. After so many years, and after the great changes in the world, it didn't seem surprising that the Red World Fairy was able to kill a human, immortal-level powerhouse in seconds. However, the Red World Fairy's means were really terrifying. In the future, don't let your imagination run wild. Otherwise, I won't be polite to you. The Red World Fairy looked at Lin Feng, revealing a threatening look. She didn't speak, but used her divine sense to send a message to Lin Feng. After threatening Lin Feng, The red world fairy shattered the immortal chi light shield with a palm. Then she entered the Tao Source immortal palace. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. The red world fairy actually knew what he was thinking. She could peek into other people's inner thoughts. This was too abnormal, too deceptive. He had always wanted to conquer the red world fairy and make the red world fairy his first wife. So all these thoughts in his heart were all known by the red world fairy. After thinking of this, Lin Feng wanted to cry. Originally, he thought that the red world fairy didn't know anything. It turned out that he had been completely exposed. However, the red world fairy just threatened him and didn't do anything to him. What did this mean? Could it be that she spared him because they were both from 9 regions and had some interactions in the past? Or was it because the red world fairy didn't reject him? If only it was the latter. If it was the latter, it meant that he still had a chance in the future. Of course, all sorts of thoughts flashed through his mind. Lin Feng regained his senses and said, "Come, let's go to the Tao Source Immortal Palace and loot it." Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. In fact, even an expert like Wanyang Sanren was not qualified to enter the inner world of Tao Source Immortal Palace. Even Kong Mingdao, the guardian of the Tao Source Immortal Palace, was not qualified to enter it. They were only in the outer palace. The real treasures were in the inner palace. After Lin Feng and the others rushed into the Tao Source Immortal Palace, they discovered that the red world fairy was currently slamming her palms against a huge stone door. It was the stone door that led to the inner hall of the Tao Source Immortal Palace. The outer hall was huge, but it was empty. Only by opening the stone door and entering the inner hall would he be able to gain something. In order to enter the inner palace, exalted immortal Hong Chen used the simplest, most direct, and most violent method to enter. Seeing this, Lin Feng couldn't help but frown. Those who were strong could do whatever they wanted. Kacha kacha. In the end, the stone door was smashed by the red world fairy. Finally, the stone door exploded. The red world fairy was the first to enter the inner palace. Lin Feng and the others also rushed into the inner palace. After entering the inner palace, Lin Feng discovered that the inner palace was a huge space. It was a space shrouded in immortal chi. Endless Tao Source immortal pills were suspended in this space. When he saw the Tao Source immortal pills, Lin Feng's eyes widened. He even felt that his cultivation realm was about to be shaken. Damn, damn, damn. I'm rich, I'm really rich. Time is of the essence. Quickly collect these Tao Source immortal pills. Lin Feng couldn't help but shout. This place was naturally not the place to refine the Tao Source immortal pills, because the heavenly Tao infinite diagram would return at any time. Therefore, they needed to collect as many Tao Source immortal pills and treasures as possible, except for the 3-headed viper, who was in seclusion. Lin Feng summoned the dragon rabbit, the little dragon, and his external incarnation. He asked them to help collect the Tao Source immortal pills and treasures. A large number of Tao Source immortal pills were moved into the time-space. There were also a large number of treasures, such as many natural treasures, refining materials, rare treasures, powerful treasures, and so on. They were all moved into the time-space. The treasures in this space were the treasures that the Tao Saint Palace had accumulated over countless years. The Tao Source immortal pill was just one of the treasures. The Red World Fairy was not interested in the Tao Source immortal palace or the other treasures. She flew into the depths of this space. She was looking for the immortal scripture. The 36 scrolls of the heavenly Tao were mysterious and unfathomable. They were the supreme immortal scriptures passed down by the Tao Saint Palace. In the depths of this space, there was a huge stone tablet that was 1,000 meters tall. The stone tablet was connected to the entire space. Immortal, venerable Hong Qin originally wanted to take the steel, but she failed to do so. The Red World Fairy frowned slightly. Then she gently tapped the stone tablet. Suddenly, divine light poured into the stone tablet. Countless runes appeared on the surface of the stone steel, and those runes quickly combined together. They turned into 36 huge runes. Lin Feng was shocked. He felt that the 36 huge runes were the runes condensed from the 36 scrolls of the heavenly Tao. Now, they were condensed by the Red World Fairy with heaven-defying means. Lin Feng did not dare to hesitate. He hurriedly tried to comprehend the 36 huge runes. Yuji, Nangong Lingwei, and Wanyang Cultivator also came. They also tried to comprehend the 36 huge runes. As for Bibi and the others, they all had many secret techniques passed down from their race. So, they were not very interested in those runes. In the end, Lin Feng branded the 36 runes in his mind. He would comprehend them in the future. He quickly left and continued to collect all kinds of treasures and Tao Source immortal pills. Yuji, Nangong Lingwei, and Wanyang Cultivator were still comprehending those runes. However, those runes showed signs of dispersing. Whether they could comprehend them or not depended on their own luck. As for the Red World Fairy, she looked in a direction and revealed a surprised expression. Then she walked in that direction. Lin Feng did not pay attention to what the Red World Fairy was doing. She could do whatever she wanted. She could take whatever treasures she wanted here. Lin Feng had already obtained the 36 scrolls of the heavenly Tao. Now, Lin Feng was not most interested in the various treasures here, but the endless supply of Tao Source immortal pills. Lin Feng needed to use those Tao Source immortal pills to break through his cultivation. Therefore, Lin Feng could not wait to immediately store all the Tao Source immortal pills here into the time-space. However, this would take time. At this moment, an extremely shocking fluctuation suddenly spread out from another direction. Lin Feng quickly flew over. He saw a small golden dragon flying in the space. What is this? Lin Feng was shocked. He slapped the small golden dragon with his palm. After receiving Lin Feng's palm, the small golden dragon was beaten back to its original form. In the end, it turned into a small golden bone. The bone was densely covered with spirit patterns, and the fluctuations were extremely violent. It turned out to be a small dragon bone, and it was an origin bone left behind by an extremely powerful dragon.